Elf I am the protagonist template, Invincible chapter 561 to 580. 561. The rumors are unbelievable, please complete the order. Whoa, whoa, it's pouring rain. At this moment, in the desert city within the range of heavy rain, in the top office of the administrative building in the city center. The Alliance dispatchers and the old suffragettes in the desert city are debating whether to concentrate on expelling the giant beasts or to give priority to escorting and transferring the property of the nobles. The elf world itself is highly autonomous, whether it is each region or the various cities and towns under the jurisdiction of the region of local and alliance delegation. And because of its unique humanistic and historical environment, the Carlos region gave birth to a very wide and numerous aristocratic class. To know. In ancient times, Carlos was known as the 100 Kingdoms. On the continent of Carlos, there were hundreds of large and small kingdoms scattered across the continent. Even in today's Elves Alliance era, Carlos, there are still quite a few independent kingdoms in existence. As for the desert city, it does not have a long history in itself. Although it developed late, its extremely inflated financial resources still promoted the birth of aristocrats, a very popular class of Carlos. Although in the eyes of most Carlos nobles, those in the desert city are nothing more than nouveau riche tycoons. But, as the ruling class of the desert city, they have considerable autonomy. Once it really disagrees with the managers assigned by the alliance, then, want to implement or deny certain decisions, it will become quite difficult. As now, the final result of the stalemate between the two sides may only be the dispersion of forces, each doing its own thing. At this time, sip. The door of the office was suddenly pushed open, and with the sound of high heels kicking, Karuna, who was wearing a coat, hurried in. Kaluna champion. Miss Karuna. It would be great if you were there. Many alliance officials seemed to see the backbone, and several noble representatives also stood up to say hello. As the representative of the Carlos Alliance's military force, Kalunai, to a certain extent, is basically equivalent to the branch of the Carlos Alliance. Long. Everyone. Kalunai nodded slightly, looked around, and simply said, "Gentlemen, it's not a matter of arguing whether to drive away or who should leave first. It is the legendary Pokemon with the title of God that descended on Desert City. This is not something that ordinary humans and trainers can match. The Desert City is about to become the battlefield of the gods, and there is a danger of being completely overthrown at any time. So, the most important thing for today is to evacuate the citizens immediately. Keep the people safe." As Karuna's voice fell, the scene fell into a brief silence. Immediately after. "Then, Miss Karuna, we won't bother you anymore. I have something else to do." "Yes, I'm sorry to bother you." Several noble representatives looked at each other, exchanged glances, and set off to leave. Based on what they know about the Carlos champion, it is estimated that at most they will be held accountable after the event, which is harmless. For them, the most important thing now is to immediately pass the news back to the clan, and then transfer the strength of the trainers in the city, and immediately transfer their family members and property to the top. But this time, when they just got to the door, however, he found that there was a Shinado with a headgear, and a Steedwind speed dog with a blonde girl with disheveled hair and an unrecognizable face. They were blocking the door one after another, closing their eyes and resting. There was no thought of getting out of the way. Quote. A meticulous old man who took care of his head turned his head and asked, "Kaluna champion, what do you mean?" "Everyone, during special times, please accept unified scheduling." Karuna didn't even turn her head, she walked past several people, looked at the other 3 people in the room, and simply said, "Miss Junshalan, Captain Kano, Commissioner Longlan, now, as the champion of the Carlos League, I temporarily control the Desert City. Desert City, enter the first-level security from now on. All the security forces, special forces and trainers belonging to the Alliance and the municipality are all involved in the evacuation of the people. Remember, everything is for the fastest evacuation. In special times, any act of disrupting and interfering with evacuation, if necessary, I allow. To implement compulsory measures. ... Ask for flowers. Do it now. Yes. X3. The three immediately responded with a solemn voice. From the corner of their eyes, looking at the resolute arrangement of the Alliance personnel to control the noble representatives, they stepped towards the background in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows. I can't help but sigh in my heart. In the past, it was said that the champion of Carlos, although he was called a champion, was almost a tool of the League's executives and entertainment companies, and he was submissive. A character with no temper at all. Now, it doesn't seem to be the case. Such a resolute style of behavior and resolute scheduling is really heartbreaking. Where is the submissive tool person? Really, rumors are unbelievable. In front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of the quiet office, Ka Lunai's emaciated figure is isolated, her eyes pass through the rain curtain like a waterfall, and look further away, at the junction that exudes fierce red light. Eyes are complicated. By Z. Katakana middle ... East of the city, on the edge. Under the split scene of the scorching sun and the rainstorm, Lai Kong sits in a winding dragon body, alone, and confronts the opposite, evil shadow, Hoopa, Dialga, Kyogre and Groudon in midair. Side. At the top of a clock tower is Bai Zi, who is sitting on Kang Zhang's back, holding little Hoopa in his arms. At this moment, the two sides confronted the top of the middle. The three pairs of golden rings exuding purple mist and blue wands are entangled in pairs, and it is the exclusive skill of Evil Shadow, Hoopa and the Little Devil Hoopa, Different Dimension Cave. Manufactured, Light Wheel. You can never call for help again. Although the levels are far from each other, the exclusive skill of Different Dimensional Cave seems to be more inclined to the use of power. Therefore, Little Hoopa doesn't seem to be at a disadvantage. Well, that's also 4 on 2. Evil Shadow, Hoopa snorted coldly, and the words were filled with ignorance of Bai Zi and Xiao Hoopa. The words fall. Its eyes suddenly lit up with bursts of red light, and it manipulated the other three legendary elves to besiege Lai Kong's eye, and it fit into Bai Zi's arms and rushed in the direction of Little Hoopa. ... Begging _ 562. The battle between mythical beasts, the final call of Evil Shadow, Hoopa. It seems to be regarded as a soft persimmon. Evil Shadow, Hoopa, who was pounced with the thick smoke wrapped around him, Bai Zi's eyes narrowed slightly. In an instant, the sleeve of the left arm revealed a dazzling blue light, and faintly revealed the shape of a sword. Ow! In the next second, Kang Shang transformed into a King of Swords form in a burst of white light. The bright full moon rises from the scorching sun and the rain curtain. Under the pink light, bright King Sword, which was already energized in Kang Zhang's long kiss, was coated with a layer of pink brilliance. Brush. As Kang Zhang's 4 legs suddenly exerted force, an unparalleled rapid burst out, driving Kang Zhang straight from. There is only a tail flame that looks like a meteor streaking across the air. Moonlight Giant, 437, Beast / Who, _ Evil Shadow, Hoopa let out a tragic cry of pain, and forcefully swallowed this giant beast / which contained goblin attributes. The scorching sun behind the rain curtain was slashed by the energy that passed through the body, creating a hollow arc. Wherever Evil Shadow, Hoopa's waist staggered. The double damage makes it a little staggering. The slightly higher floors were cut off in an instant and fell on the chaotic streets. Severe pain stimulated Evil Shadow, Hoopa's brain. Sliced waist. Even revealing a faint sense of illusory. Hoopa, it hurts. Evil Shadow, Hoopa let out the constant pain from his body with his roar. But its movements didn't stop at all, and it maintained its rushing action towards Bai Zi, who was left in the air. At the same time, the ring in front of the wrist suddenly expanded and disengaged, and hovered right in front of its palm, causing the Evil Shadow, Hoopa's arm to plunge into it. Hum_. A ring emerged from behind Baizi, and the big hand of evil shadow, Hoopa that had not entered the ring suddenly stretched out from it and grabbed it towards Baizi in midair. Different dimension cave. It's close, it's close. The expression of pride mixed with pain makes evil shadow, Hoopa's expression very distorted. But just as his palm was about to grab Zhang Baizi and the little Hoopa he was holding in his arms. Sip_. The familiar scene reappeared. Kiran Julie suddenly came from above his head, followed by the familiar dizziness and whistling wind, as well as a more scorching high heat energy level shock. Boom. Evil shadow, Hoopa was unprepared and severely damaged by this powerful blow to the ground. As the rest of the momentum poured out, the annular shock spread freely. View from the sky. Centered on the drop point of the evil shadow, Hoopa. In the desert area to the east of the coverage area of the aftermath, the rolling sand and dust surged up like a tidal wave, turning into a sky full of sand and falling down. And the exact center of the impact. In the huge pothole with a diameter of more than 1 kilometer, nearly half of his body was buried in the evil shadow, Hoopa, which was deeply embedded in the base of the cement ground, and his legs were pumping. Directly above it, half empty, Necrozma, who was in the scorching sun area, was quietly suspended, and the deep black crystal torso was still deep under the mask of the scorching sun. Realistic fighting is not a battle on the field, and since he is now in the safety of Xiaohuang, it is naturally even more impossible to play any one-on-one battle game as usual. To end the battle as quickly as possible is Baizi's goal. Go on, Behemoth/Metal Claws. Evil Shadow, Hoopa who pulled himself out from the ground, Baizi's eyes were cold. The command is down. In the sky behind them, a pink full moon rang out and Necrozma, one after the other, waving the sword in the long kiss and the fierce claws, towards the direction of the evil shadow, Hoopa rush away. Moonlight Behemoth/Moonlight Metal Claws. After a few seconds. Hu_pa. The turbulent evil factor turned into a thick fog and rose, accompanied by a violent explosion and the roar of evil shadow, Hoopa. Blue, black, white, pink. The energy turbulence of the four colors turned into a tornado that soared into the sky, and a huge column tornado rose in the east of the desert city, sweeping and spreading frantically. Come. Baizi used his mind power to drag himself away from the core area of energy conflict at the first time. Out of the corner of the eye swept across the battlefield on the other side. At this moment, Lai Kong's eye has been transformed into a mega evolution form, and the exclusive characteristic, Delta Airflow, is fully functioning, gradually transforming the characteristics, Ending Land, and Origin Sea, of Groudon and Kyogre in the original return state. Cover. At the same time. Between the dragon's body, the finishing touch, blessed by Godspeed, crossed the green lines in midair, relying on unparalleled flying skills to continuously avoid Kyogre and Groudon. And Dialga's heavy blocking. Trying to find an opportunity to break the deadlock with one hit. Baizi's eyes narrowed slightly. Just when he was about to make a move. Sip. The sound of footsteps that was so heavy that it seemed to make the entire city tremble suddenly came, accompanied by the appearance of almost substantial air pressure in the air. Baizi suddenly turned his attention to where the energy turbulence was. Now. The turbulent energy turbulence exploded with this loud noise. Kangshang turned into a stream of light and shot out, leaping up with light steps, landing on the other side of the turbulent current opposite Baizi. On the other hand, Necrozma flew straight back to Baizi and hovered in front of him. With a wave of his claws, he tore apart the aftermath of the impact. The aftermath of the explosion dissipated. Within sight. It is the bottom of the deeper semicircular pothole, the evil shadow, Hoopa, who is half kneeling on the ground, his body seems to be short-circuited. Now. 4.3 was gasping for breath, like the evil shadow, Hoopa, who is about to dissipate into smoke at any time, with his head lowered. In front of the only raised palm, a huge, light wheel, emitting gray light stood. And within the twisted circular light curtain of the light wheel, the sole of a foot was covered with green plants, and a white cylindrical limb with a black folded line above the knee was exposed. With this huge leg that is nearly 20 meters long just exposed, it can be called a slow knee-bending movement. A majestic behemoth is slowly extruding from the light wheel. P.S. Guess who? This one will be number 1 in the legendary strength of the current appearance. 563. The third creation, the enemy of Arceus. The size of this behemoth is obviously far beyond the size of the halo. With the body moving forward at an average speed, it is continuously squeezed out. Evil Shadow, Hoopa also had to support his body with all his might, manipulating the light wheel to continue to expand. And with the expansion of the light wheel, with a yellow bracelet, a knee-length arm with 3 white fingers at the end stretches out, followed by a yellow curved disc structure lined with holes in the shape of the Big Dipper. These are enough. Or, when the leg came out, he had basically determined the identity of the other party. Regichkas. Baizi slowly spit out the name of the existence with the title of Holy Pillar King, capable of creating lower-level legends and moving continental plates with his bare hands. In his eyes, there was an unstoppable shock. There is a big gap between the real elves, especially the legendary body size and the data in the previous life. Baizi had expected this. Example, the Groudon marked 3.5 meters is actually nearly 20 meters tall. After returning to the original, it directly broke through the 30-meter mark. It is a real giant. Original. Baizi felt that Regichka's 25th was almost tens of meters high. But now it seems the size of the Holy Pillar King, Regichka's. At least more than 100 meters. And not only is the size far beyond the estimates, but the strength of Regichka's is also far beyond Baizi's expectations. Race, Regichka's. Attribute, General. Feature, Slow Start Exclusive, most of the time in a deep sleep, attack and speed are halved. Level, Quasi-Creation Level, Level 120, -5100ths. Potential, Creation Level. HP, 110, Attack, 160, Defense, 110, Special Attack, 80, Special Defense, 110, Speed, 100. Exclusive Skill, Crushing. Skills, Slap, Strange Light, Tit for Tat, Revenge, Stampede, Hold, Million-Ton Punch, Wide Area Defense, Mind Hammer, Heavy Collision, Arm Hammer, Ultimate Impact. Power, Creation, Abolished. Law Comprehension, General 100%, Steel 100%, Ice 100%, Rock 100%, Dragon 100%, Electric 100%, Fighting 99%. Authority, Creation, Forging. Status, Seriously Injured, Half Asleep. Introduction. The first batch of naturally born creatures in the main world of the elf, and the first top legend to break through the field of creation, but because of the power of comprehension, we usurped part of the creation of the world, the creation authority of the god. Arceus was therefore abolished, and he fell into a cycle of long slumber and awakening to other powers. To be honest, even with Baizi's knowledge, he didn't take a deep breath because of Regigigas, luxurious attribute panel and the information revealed in it. Potential is the third creation level after the continuation of Dark Super Dream and Hoopa. The strength can be said to be the strongest Baizi has ever seen so far. It is completely comparable to the God of Radiance, Necrozma in his heyday. But no. According to the information displayed on the panel, the Sacred Pillar King is seriously injured. And the reason for its injury is even more ridiculous. Was it because the power of comprehension had usurped part of the creation authority of the creation god, Arceus? Known by Baizi. Conflicts of authority and authority cannot coexist. That is to say, Regichka's relationship with Arceus was a divine enemy. Will this survive? Moreover, it also clearly grasped the power of the next level authority, creation, and forging. The one with the weakest comprehension law is also comparable to the top legends, and even more than a full 7 in one breath. Among them, there are 6 other states of perfection. Perverted. Baizi really didn't expect that Regigigas, whose style and record were not outstanding among the top legends, would have such strength. Never let Regigigas be summoned. This thought appeared in Baizi's mind. To know. With Regigigas' size alone, a simple arm swing might be equivalent to the destructive power of a giant move. What's more, the other party also has a quasi-create level powerful strength. Once completely called out, and really obeyed the instructions of Evil Shadow, Hoopa. By the time, unless a Solgaleo or Lunara takes the initiative to dedicate, let Necrozma absorb it, and complete the ultimate burst, to become the ultimate Necrozma. Restore quasi-genesis level strength. Lai Kong sits and breaks through the battle, and directly breaks through to the quasi-creation level. Otherwise, I'm afraid no one can stop Regigigas. Stop it. All kinds of thoughts flashed through Baizi's mind, and he made a decisive decision and shouted at Necrozma. Gay! Exclamation mark quote. Necrozma made a strange sound, and the white light suddenly condensed from its raised claws, turning into a burning white streamer towards Reggie, who had already stepped out of the light wheel, halfway. Chickas. Photon surge. At the same time. 437 inches ow. Accompanied by the sound of the King of Swords, the bright King Sword, in the long kiss suddenly soared and turned into a great sword about 40 meters long. Slightly sideways. Next second. In a rather awkward posture, he twisted the wolf's body from midair, and slashed heavily above Regigigas' head. Giant beast slash. Sip _ Whoa. The photon surge made Regigigas' movements a little, and the following giant slash made Regigigas' figure can't help but lean back slightly. Don't think about it. Evil Shadow, Hoopa, whose body was flickering constantly, had his eyes torn apart, and in the roar, the raised palm suddenly pulled back. And with its movements, the huge ring that was nearly enough to see the whole city suddenly moved back 7 or 8 meters. This time, Regigigas, who had only shown one section at first, had most of his slightly reclined body suddenly revealed. At the same time. Drop. The 3 pairs of light-like eyes that had always been dimmed suddenly flashed red, green, and gray. 564. A blow that changes the continental plate. Regigigas, are you awake? This guess made by Z couldn't help but look condensed. And at the same time. As Evil Shadow, Hoopa forcibly manipulated light wheel to drag out most of Regigigas' body, its body that was already flickering like a broken line appeared faintly transparent. In some places, even atomization occurred. Obviously, Evil Shadow, Hoopa was not completely incapacitated at this moment, he was almost out of 10. But at such a price. Instead it was. Sip _ The soles of Regigigas' slightly raised soles fell steadily again, accompanied by the ring-shaped impact of the ground surging in all directions. Giant God, standing on the earth. Who tilde. With the complete appearance of Regigigas, the Evil Shadow, Hoopa exploded directly into a thick fog, and in Baizi's greatly changed expression, he suddenly rushed towards Regigigas' body. But then, Baizi's expression became strange again. Because Evil Shadow, Hoopa, who had reincarnated into an energy body, seemed to have bumped into an invisible wall before it could touch Regigigas' body. Not only failed to possess the success. Even more so, under this collision, the 7 meat and 8 elements rolled to the ground, and seemed to have completely lost the fighting power and remained motionless. And Regigigas was like a power outage, and after a few flashes of 3 pairs of lantern-like eyes, they were completely extinguished. It stood like a giant statue. Baizi glanced at it. It was found that the state of Regigigas did not change from sleeping to awakened, but instead added a sleepwalking state. Sleepwalking. Baizi's expression was weird. And right now, Mr. Baizi, With the shouts from far and near, the brothers and sisters Balza and Maile, who were riding the warrior eagle and the fiery eagle respectively, rushed from the direction of the desert tower. The two sides happened to be separated by rejichkas. Seeing that Baizi had forgotten to come, Maile immediately waved in Baizi's direction. And Balza immediately raised the pot of punishment he reforged in his hand and aimed at Hoopa's evil shadow, which had turned into a fog. Immediately, the mouth of the pot seemed to have an irresistible suction force, and the evil shadow was directly included in it. Done all this, Baizi saw that Balza almost subconsciously wanted to throw the jug of punishment in his hand. Fortunately, he stopped this action in time, and quickly took out a barrel-shaped translucent pink jade, and stuffed the jug of punishment into it. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. You commanded the elves to participate in the sealing of Hoopa's evil shadow, and gained a little battle experience plus 100, and Lai Kongzai, Necrozma, and Kang Shang gained experience plus 10 plus 15 respectively. The level reaches the critical point, the experience is transformed, the source is enhanced and the skill proficiency is enhanced. Close black lens bracket. Ding! Lycong sits speed race value plus 1. Ding! Necrozma HP plus 1. Ding! King Ring's attack racial value plus 1. The system beeps sound one after another. And as Evil Shadow, Hoopa was resealed, Dialga, Groudon, and Kyogre all quickly regained consciousness. Dialga stayed away from Lai Kongsi almost as soon as he woke up, and then directly plunged into the hole that appeared in front of him. Kyogre jumped right after, crossed half of the city in an arc, and plunged straight into the sea. Only Groudon, after looking around for a while to identify the direction, he had to hum, and walked in the direction where Kyogre left. Along the way, he left a string of charred paw prints. Baizi obviously couldn't let Groudon traverse the city like this, and gestured to the little Hoopa in his arms. Little Hoopa suddenly nodded his head clearly. Little hand waved. One of the freed rings flew to Groudon and turned into a huge, light wheel. Wow! Feeling the familiar lava breath on the other side of the halo, Groudon turned his head in the direction of Hoopa and gave a friendly roar, then took heavy steps and got into the halo. Inside, your Lai Kongzai is repelled. The source is enhanced, the speed race value plus 3. Lai Kong sat silently watching the three legendary elves leave, and deep coldness flowed in his scarlet eyes. This is definitely the most frustrating battle it has ever fought in its life. In order to ensure that these three guys are dragged, it can only walk and walk. It was chased by three guys whose strength was far inferior to it as a target for a long time. And it itself. In order to be foolproof, before breaking the deadlock with 100% certainty, I had to endure the irritability in my heart and play hide and seek with those three guys. Baizi didn't think so much. Although this time the chaos seemed a bit anticlimactic, but it also gained a full 6 racial points, and the matter was finally resolved. Now, as long as Regigigas is sent back, and then takes advantage of the weakness of the evil shadow, to complete purification, and then finds a way to take Hoopa away, the desert city and his party will basically be complete. Mr. Baizi, X2. The Balza brothers and sisters circled around and came to Baizi's side. After saying hello, they couldn't help but turn their eyes to Regigigas who was standing still. It was the first time they saw each other. To such a huge elf, in his eyes, he couldn't help but be shocked. Baizi glanced at the jug of punishment in Balza's arms. Afterwards, he patted Hoopa's little head in his arms. Okay Hoopa, let's send this big guy back. Hoopa nodded obediently. Then, it raised its hands, and a ring quickly grew in the air, covering Regichkas's head. But right now, Jing Hao Gujiao, who didn't understand, suddenly waved his right arm like a slash. A strange air humming sounded, followed by a sound like cloth brocade being torn. Baizi's scalp exploded. In the sudden inexplicable panic, his body froze, and in Baizi's eyes, the whole world seemed to fall into a black and white still picture in an instant. Then, boom! It was as if an invisible giant axe was smashed down, and with the roaring sound, nearly half of the desert city, including the straight ahead where Regichkas waved his arm. Aerial view from the sky. A huge ravine stretched continuously, completely separating the corner of the west coast of the entire Carlos continent. P.S. Collect the exclusive Z moves of Lai Kongzai, either of the dragon type or the flight type. 565. Facing the power of creation. Ow! Gay! Roar! Kang Shang, Necrozma, and Lai Kong sat around by Z almost immediately. Next second. A sharp-edged energy sword. The light of the faint glow that burns the air into wisps of blue smoke. The blazing blue dragon shaped light and shadow. Explosion one after another. It turned into layers of prestige and locked on Regigikas, who fell into silence again after swinging his arm. It took a long while for Baizi to regain his senses. He looked at the abyss that stretched for nowhere and was only a few hundred meters away, and his voice was dry. Quote, This is the quasi-creation level. He has estimated the power of the creation level, but estimation and seeing it with his own eyes are two different things. What's more, this is only a quasi-creation level. And maybe it's just a simple stress response in the quasi-creation level sleepwalking. Stress response. At this moment, Baizi's eyelids twitched wildly, and his inner unease surged wildly from his limbs, constantly stimulating his nerves. Corner of the eye. For a moment, he saw Regichka's trembling fingers. An image suddenly exploded in my mind. It was the afterimage of the giant god who stood up to the sky and waved his arm again. At the same time, your mental power reaches the critical value. Heaven rewards hard work. The ability to perceive danger leads to transformation and enhancement, and the ability to increase the perception of danger increases. Future vision uncontrollable. The system's prompt sounded in Baizi's ears. But at the moment, Baizi obviously didn't have the extra energy to pay attention to this, and his expression rarely showed a grim look uncontrollably. Sink immediately. At this moment, the burning white thought force burst out wildly, turning into a net that wrapped the Miley brothers and sisters and their riding elves around them, and plunged down towards the ruins of the city below. At the same time, Baizi's three legendary elves also responded. Roar tilde. Lai Kongzai didn't hesitate at all, his sinuous figure rolled directly, wrapping Baizi first with the reaction ability of the god's domain level. Then, one by one, they pinched the Miley brothers and sisters who were riding on the elf. An arrow, it went straight down, CFED. Kang Shang and Necrozma also dispelled their energy levels out of absolute trust in Baizi, and followed one after the other. And in this very moment, the silent Regichkas waved his hand and fanned the air in front of him as if to drive away something. -1-2. Great sound. The air above the desert city seemed to be smashed into a paste in an instant, and a wall of air like a substance swept past, as if leaving a dividing line between the sky and the earth in an instant. At this moment, Baizi, who was already sitting in the dragon's body by Lai Kong, seemed to be suddenly deaf, and it seemed that a humming sound with no change in frequency continued to ring in his ears. And the next moment, a strong sense of suffocation suddenly came. That kind of feeling was as if the air was instantly evacuated, and it was as if the universe had fallen into a vacuum in an instant. The pain of suffocation invaded Baizi's brain in an instant. Good for the next moment. Roar tilde. In the long roar of the dragon, he suddenly felt a kind of fresh breeze that was as broad as the sky blowing on his face, and then, the incomparably mellow pure oxygen rushed to his face, which made Baizi from suffocation. I was relieved from the terrifying feeling of breathing. Cough, 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 huh. Baizi was breathing heavily, and the force even made him choke a little. After a long while, after recovering a little, he turned his eyes to the side, and saw that the Miley brothers and sisters not far from him were all pale and unconscious. His lips were open, his chest heaving violently, like a carp king lacking oxygen. The two riding elves were also lying on the ground like dead dogs, sticking out their tongues and panting shiveringly. Around them, including themselves, a layer of cyan airflow continuously emanated from Lai Kongxi's body, penetrating the entire cyan light curtain wrapped in the outer layer. Cough cough. Lai Kongxi, and you guys, cough. You don't target Regichkas with your aura, don't show hostility to him, and don't take the initiative to attack. Baizi was lying on top of the dragon body that Lai Kong was sitting on, and he quickly and loudly exhorted the first time he came over. Subsequently, he could clearly feel Lai Kongxi's body gradually relax. But then, he suddenly felt a little wrong again. Wait. Hey. After trying to speak a few times, and finding that he really couldn't hear his voice, Baizi stared. Damn, I'm deaf. Just temporarily. Lai Kongxi's unique telepathy came, and Baizi also reacted. This should be the one from Regichkas just now, which caused a loud noise and caused him to be temporarily deaf. Come on. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a constant buzzing in his ears, but everything would be silent. After confirming this, Baizi put his heart back into his stomach. Immediately after. Lala. Under the slight vibration, Lai Kong sat slightly relaxing the dragon's body, allowing Baizi to see the outside scene clearly. The whole city was a mess, with green plants, spring water, the surface of the building and glass. Wait, everything seems to have been scraped off a layer. The square inch where Baizi was located was the only place in the vicinity that remained intact. This intact ground is in the shape of a leaking drop. Baizi is in the middle of a circle surrounded by Lai Kongxi. Necrozma and Kang Shang are increasing outwards, and in front of Kang Shang is the tip of the leaking drop. Baizi can completely imagine. At the moment when Regichkas suddenly attacked, Lai Kongxi, Necrozma, and Kang Chi supported layers upon layers of support. The innermost Lai Kong sits to ensure safety, Necrozma in the middle strengthens the protection, and Kang Shang is responsible for facing and cutting off the airflow that hits the outermost layer, weakening the power of the aftermath. 566. One last time. After this blow, Regichkas fell into silence once again. Baizi, who was worried, also checked again, and found that the status column of Regichkas still showed sleeping, and sleepwalking, and he was relieved a little. Guess. It's now certain. Do not. Strictly speaking, it should be roughly guessable. Regigigas at this time, if he doesn't cause the other party's stress response, then he can be considered as harmless for the time being. Baizi. Just when Baizi was thinking about what to do with this big guy, Lai Kongxi's unique telepathy suddenly sounded again. What do you mean by the quasi-creation level you said earlier? Think. Huh. Baizi was stunned when he heard the words. Isn't the quasi-creation level the same as the quasi-creation world level? Hard to do. In Lai Kongxi's knowledge, there is no quasi-creation level, one say. But when he looked up and found that not only Lai Kongxi, but Kang Shang and even Necrozma looked at him with a puzzled look, he suddenly couldn't understand. Lai Kongxi and Kang Shang don't understand, it is understandable, but Necrozma, you yourself fell from the quasi-creation level, right? Do not know either. You guys don't know what quasi-creation level means? Baizi asked tentatively. Although I am not sure about the specific classification standards of your human beings, according to the Strength Division 1 no, there is indeed no quasi-creation level. Kang Zhang's telepathy sounded, and while his eyes wandered near Regichkas, he explained to Baizi. The Overlord, who comprehends and can use mystical skills, the God's domain, that formally comprehends the law, and the basically unknown, creation domain, this is what I know of all levels. Only 3. Baizi raised his eyebrows. Comprehending and being able to use profound truth-level skills is obviously the expression of heavenly kings, and formal comprehension of laws is indeed one of the characteristics of entering the realm of God. But isn't the gap a bit too big? And the creation realm? Looking at Kang Shang, and Lai Kong sitting, even Necrozma's eyes were filled with excitement. At this moment, Baizi suddenly felt a little stunned. Perhaps in his opinion, there is a very clear path from birth to the Heavenly King level, and even the God realm and creation level after that. But that is based on the power of Baizi's power, detection ability. For other people and elves, these are just summaries of experience, many of which are known, I am afraid, will be missed by the slightest, and the final, correct answer, will be different. Even, half understood. Now think of it. The training of elves in this world basically focuses on the tempering of physique, energy level, skills and attributes. As for the comprehension of the law, for them, it is the degree of qualitative change in the attribute energy level of the elves. This idea cannot be said to be wrong, and even to a certain extent, this is a human being summed up, a fairly effective training method. Because it can indeed comprehend and enhance the understanding of the law. But the essential cognition is still deviated. And it is precisely what led to the emergence of a group of geniuses in the elf world who reached the peak of the championship at the age of 32, but the elf leader who is located on it has almost broken the basic fundamentals. The reason? All the time. Because of the blessings of various adventures and the Heaven's Path rewarding system, I am afraid that he has overlooked the value of these cognitions. Don't say anything else. Creation realm, for those top legends, let them devote themselves to follow immediately, but make friends, and it's okay to pull them out to fight in groups and stand on the platform, that must be no problem. Thoughts turn around. But Baizi naturally couldn't hide anything about Lai Kong sitting on them. Seeing that Regichkas was still in silence, Baizi took advantage of the gap between observing the other party and repeated the promotion path he knew one by one. So, the foundation of promotion to the creation domain lies in the understanding of power. Lai Kongzai's tone was full of unstoppable agitation. And at the same time as obtaining power, you also need to improve and refine your own energy level, as well as transform your aptitude, right? Necrozma said. Ask for flowers. Yes, this is all I know about the creation field. Baizi nodded and immediately added, as for whether other conditions are required, I don't know. It's good to know that. Kang Shang is probably the most calm one among them. After all, its pursuit of strength is not as scorching as Lai Kongzai's. Creation realm, like Necrozma. Indeed. Indeed, being able to point the way forward is already the greatest help. Lai Kongzai and Necrozma agreed. Know the way forward. It's important for both Lexus and Necrozma. At this moment, they can't wait to start studying immediately. Lai Kongzai even came up with the idea of whether to look for a few divine beasts to study them. After all, according to Baizi, authority, may be to indicate the leadership of power, the thing of the direction of enlightenment. But before that, Baizi, Kang Shang turned his head, then looked at Regichkas again. Are you ready to deal with this guy? Dispose of. After looking at Regichkas as well, Baizi frowned slightly. Quite a while. His eyes swept over the jug of retribution that had fallen to the side, and turned his gaze to a farther distance, where the desert city's evacuation gathered. For a moment, he looked back. Wait a little longer, and then, let me try one last time. P.S. Calvin is quite serious recently, and I feel that the last few paragraphs have not been written well. Also, I was just going to click on the concept of creation level, and I will lay it out a little bit. I put it on the pad, but I accidentally felt that I was writing long-winded. Beg. 567. Give Hoopa to me. Hurry up, someone fell into the water. Hurry up and call the water elves to save people. Pay attention to order, don't be chaotic. What about the logistics team? Where is the medical elves of the logistics team? There are seriously injured people here. Hurry up and use the healing wave for the injured. At this moment, at the centralized evacuation point located in the northwest of the desert city, countless people waiting to be evacuated, as well as the urban guards, Junsha, alliance trainers and medical staff who are maintaining order, have blocked the water here. Before under the prestige and pressure of the league champion Karuna. There is also an Alliance special team that is eyeing. Although the entire evacuation point was in a panic, it was still barely orderly and dispatched uniformly under the command of the Desert City and Alliance staff. They were sent to the airport and the pier for boarding and boarding. The world of 437 Elves is vast and sparsely populated. But the entire Desert City is one of the few large cities in the Carlos area. With a permanent population of 70,000, although it is still more than some large towns in previous lives, it is not a momentary it's all evacuated. At this point, even in desert cities where shipping is very developed, even if some cargo planes and ships are emptied, it will take at least 3 or 5 trips to evacuate all the people. It was fine. Although the entire city is in the midst of various explosions and changes, the aftermath of the battle is generally limited to the edge of the city east. Although there is panic, but they are still within the acceptable range. But when Regichka's shot twice, especially the second time, the intense oppression and suffocation brought by that moment made everyone present feel the threat of death. Under threat of death. The riots were irresistible. This is just a natural disaster. I don't want to stay here. I want to get on the ship. No, I want to board. I bought a ticket to Mier City before, get out of the way. I want to board. Whoa, Mom. God. Pushing, crying, and even praying. It was originally an orderly evacuation point, but it suddenly became a mess. And faced with this, the staff who were originally understaffed suddenly became even more stretched. Even Karuna, a champion-level trainer, was a little overwhelmed for a while. After all, even if her Shinado was infinitely close to the peak of the championship, the intensity of its mental power cannot be precisely controlled at the same time, and tens of thousands of people who are in turmoil and elves. Often, she just ran to the south to control the riot, and then, the originally stable north also became chaotic. Completely careless. Karuna was almost exhausted. Shinado, a mobilization method, psychic power. Sana tilde. Invisible fluctuations spread out from the palms of Shinado's virtual and closed hands in an instant. In an instant. The people who were pushing and fighting together suddenly froze in place as if they were frozen. Immediately afterwards, with the spread of tyrannical mental power, a pregnant woman with a big belly was lifted out of the crowd by the power of thought and sent to the medical staff who were waiting on the side. The crowd is still surging. Shinado, who once again temporarily controlled the commotion here, slowly restrained her thoughts and fell back to Karuna's side. At this moment, if you look carefully, you can easily notice that the forehead of the star champion of Carlos is full of fine sweat. There is also a look of worry in his eyes. Although she calmed down the rioting crowd like a firefighter, Karuna knew very well that there is a critical point in the human spirit. Especially in a situation that could endanger his own life at any time. Continue to press harder. At that time, once it breaks out, I am afraid it will be bloodshed. Gay. Just when Karuna was deep in thought, accompanied by a strange humming sound like a whistle, a strange spirit like a black spar appeared in the sky above the evacuation point. It's Necrozma. Karuna immediately noticed Necrozma's figure, and her delicate eyebrows twitched slightly. This is. She recognized that this was one of the spirits that Baizi used to fight other legends. Although I don't know. But come to think of it, it must be one of the legendary elves that have never been known, right? Just. What is it doing here at this time? Could it be that the battle on Baizi's side is over? This thought made Karuna's brows suddenly loosen. Because if so, then, the bloodshed will not happen any more than to evacuate. But what happened next? It made Karuna instantly realize that she was thinking something wrong. Because the unknown legendary elf flashed like a painted part for a while. Not waiting for Karuna and her Shinado to react. An incomparably vast mind force swept toward the entire evacuation point, including the evacuation point, as well as everyone and elves at the airport and dock. Even planes full of passengers and 10,000-ton ferry are all packed up. Subsequently, just like packing luggage, he held up tens of thousands of humans, elves, and even plane ferries, and galloped away inland. Karuna, who was also encased in it, stared at the desert city, which quickly became smaller in the blink of an eye, turning into a black spot and disappeared. This is the legendary Pokemon, the power of God. Although she was already a witness to the battle of the gods, when she experienced the power of this 4.3 legend, it was still shocking enough. The other side. After confirming that Regichkas was temporarily harmless, in order to avoid harming innocents, Baizi took the initiative to ask Necrozma to clear the battlefield ahead of time. Then, he called out auspicious eggs again, and simply healed himself and the Balza brothers and sisters. Soon, the brother and sister woke up one after another. After confirming that there was nothing wrong with the siblings, Baizi, who was playing with the pot of punishment in his hand, raised his head and said bluntly, "Both of you, I hope you can leave Hoopa to my care." 568. Liberation. Hoopa, would you like to be my partner? You, what did you say? Balza looked at Baizi in disbelief, and confirmed in a voiceless voice that Miley was also stunned by Baizi's sudden remarks. I mean, I hope you leave Hoopa in my care. Baizi spoke again. You. Balza's expression turned solemn, and he was about to refuse directly. For them, Hoopa is like family. Even if Baizi helped and rescued them, they would definitely remember this kindness and try their best to repay it, but this is not the reason for letting the other party take Hoopa away. But Balza's refusal has not been spoken. Next moment, it was as if it was blocked in the throat. Because I can help Hoopa regain control of the power of liberation. In other words, my ability can purify Hoopa's evil shadow in the jug of retribution. Balza was suddenly dumbfounded. So, Yali spoke at this time. Her eyes were fixed on Baizi, and her eyes showed emotions that even she herself did not know. Are you going to take Hoopa away with this? The atmosphere suddenly became a little condensed. Balza frowned and looked at his younger sister, who grew up with him. And little Hoopa, who was nestled in Baizi's arms, looked at the Balza brothers and sisters, and then looked up at Baizi, and was at a loss for a while. Hoopa, Hoopa. Children, don't interrupt. Baizi stretched out his hand and pressed the small head that was carrying Hoopa. His blue eyes like clouds and mist met Mayali's eyes, and suddenly smiled. You think too much about Mayali. He shook his head and said with a smile, whether you agree with me to take Hoopa away, I will help it remove the influence of the power of the evil shadow. Or, do you think I'm the kind of person who takes advantage of others? Baizi shrugged. If you really think so, I'm so disappointed, Mayali. No no no. Mayali's pretty face suddenly flushed. She hurriedly waved her hands and said, I didn't really doubt that you were that kind of person. Talking and talking. She suddenly seemed to be discouraged, lowered her head, and said, I'm sorry. Balza's frown deepened. He looked at Baizi again and said, since you said you can purify the evil shadow, then, what's the proof? Baizi did not speak. The power of words should not be underestimated, but sometimes they are the least powerful. Therefore, he just covered his palms on the jug of punishment in his hand. All of a sudden, a warm aura suddenly emerged from Baizi's palms, and quickly no one came to the pot of punishment. Time goes by slowly. Hoopa's evil shadow, who had completely lost the ability to resist, made Baizi's power like no one, and quickly calmed down and dissolved this power at a speed that even surprised him. Negative emotions in the amount. In the process, contrary to Baizi's expectations, the deepest negative emotion of evil shadow is neither resentment nor anger, but loneliness. Every minute and every second of that dark day made its resentment and anger deeper. And resentment and anger followed. All that's left is the deepest loneliness. But out of some kind of psychology, Baizi also used his coherence ability to share everything he felt during the process with the Balza brothers and sisters and little Hoopa himself. Evil shadow. Little Hoopa's voice was waxy, and the Balza brothers and sisters couldn't help but feel a trace of guilt in their eyes. In the end, the fault that Hoopa turned over at the beginning was the self-inflicted consequence of human instigation. This 100 years of loneliness is enough to repay. Call. Exhale slightly. As Baizi opened his eyes, he opened the pot of punishment. A splendid purple aura rose up, happily surrounding the crowd for a few laps. When little Hoopa opened his arms, he plunged straight into its petite body. Hu tilde pa. With the sound that gradually became stronger, the suspended little Hoopa's body quickly deformed and expanded in a burst of light, and retransformed into a 6-armed halo super demon. Hoopa, liberation form, the pinnacle of the first-level god, 119, 95 100ths. Hoopa, who had retrieved his power, was removed from the restriction on power, and his strength jumped to the level of a first-level god. And Hoopa quickly shrank back to the punishment form in a burst of white light, and then, the ring wrapped around its waist suddenly detached. Surrounding slightly, turning into a light wheel, at the same time. Light wheel, condensed again not far in front of it. Immediately after, Hoopa jumped in shape, and immediately drilled in from the light wheel, in front of him, and re-drilled out of another light wheel, at the next moment. He, are you scared? Hoopa, who had the golden ring re-worn around his waist, threw himself into Baizi's arms in a burst of laughter, tugged at Baizi's collar, and asked with a cute face. Bai, have you been frightened by Hoopa? Saying that, Hoopa blinked expectantly. Really scared. Baizi stretched out his hand and flicked the ring mark between Hoopa's eyebrows and chuckled. And Hoopa, who got a satisfactory answer, immediately flew back to the midair with a smile on his face and turned in a circle, entertaining himself. That's great. My expectations have finally come true. Seeing this, Miley was instantly overjoyed. It was Balza on the side. Deep-rooted resentment, anger and loneliness of the evil shadow constantly surfaced in his mind. 437 half sound. He raised his head and looked at Baizi's unchanging calm eyes. Looks like you've made up your mind. Baizi raised his eyebrows slightly. Why, aren't you going to listen to me first? No need. Balza shook his head, the subtle struggle in his eyes was gradually replaced by firmness. Hoopa likes you very much, and... His eyes swept across Li Kongxi, King Sheng, and even Regichka's in turn. Maybe only by following you, Hoopa can truly grow. Miley pursed her lips, lowered her head, and was silent on Balza's words. I said, are the two of you too sentimental? Baizi spread his hands and couldn't help but look at the two brothers and sisters who were both immersed in low air pressure with a bit of amusement. Even if Hoopa follows me, with its light wheel ability, and wants to come back to see you, isn't the light wheel just like visiting a door? What about the two of you making such an expression? The words fell. Balza and Miley's sad expressions suddenly stiffened. Ignoring the two brothers and sisters who were trying to reduce their sense of existence at this time, Baizi took out a luxurious ball directly from his waist and handed it to Hoopa. Then Hoopa, will you be my partner? 569. Send Regichkas. Fairy Chalcedony. Partner. The little Hoopa in the form of punishment tilted his head, and his cute little face was filled with puzzled expressions. Do you mean friends? It's also family. Baizi added with a smile. And from now on, we will accompany each other, going to the towering towers, star-studded islands, and silver-covered snow-capped mountains, traveling and adventuring around the world, to witness different scenery and stories. Speaking of this, Baizi looked at punishing Hoopa, whose eyes were getting brighter and brighter, the corner of his mouth raised slightly, and lifted the luxurious ball in his hand again. How about Hoopa? Are you going to witness this with me? Well, of course I would. Punishing Hoopa clenched his fists, his little head nodded and cheered like garlic, and then rushed straight to the luxurious ball in Baizi's hand. The moment his forehead touched the luxury ball button, punishment Hoopa turned into a red light and was contained in the Pokeball. Drop drop. A red light flashed on the button of the Pokeball without the slightest shaking. After 3 soft clicks, the sound of whoosh returned to calm. Nimbus's super demon, Hoopa. Got it. Looking at the Pokeball in his hand, the corners of Baizi's mouth involuntarily raised an obvious arc. Subsequently, he released the punishment Hoopa again and stretched out his palm towards the opponent. Please give me more advice in the future, Hoopa. Hoopa nodded heavily, narrowed his eyes, and held Baizi's fingers while laughing. The attribution of Hoopa is determined. Baizi's purpose of going to Desert City has been achieved. And it doesn't seem to have caught the attention of Arceus, which is also good news. Next. It's about getting ready to go to the inverted world. But before that, he has another thing that needs to be tried. Quote. You mean, you're going to try to send Regichkas back before the Desert City right away tilde. After listening to Baizi's brief description of what happened and his decision, a look of worry appeared on Miley's face. But isn't it too risky to do so? She worried. The 2 brothers and sisters of Regichkas have experienced it firsthand. Add Baizi's description. As well as the deep chasm and tragic scene east of the Desert City, the 2 brothers and sisters can better understand the horror and danger of Regichkas. And now, hearing that Baizi was going to risk the opponent's stress response to fight back, he tried to send him back. Naturally, Mayali is not worried. Don't worry, since I've decided to do it, I can't be completely sure. Baizi smiled and comforted. Then he said, what's more, you should have heard me talking about it just now. Although Regichkas looks harmless to humans and animals now, once it is stimulated again, who knows that its next blow will be directed towards in what direction? What if it's your hometown? What if it's a town in the interior or a gathering place for elves? With the words, Baizi's expression gradually became serious, and Miley wrapped Balza in silence. Indeed. If this is the case, it will be a scene of heavy casualties. That's something no one wants to face. Certainly. Including Baizi. After all, Carlos is also Serena's hometown. I'll try. No, I'll definitely send Regigigas back to its slumber. Using Hoopa's light wheel to send the siblings Miley and Balza back to the Valley of Creation. In advance, the time has come to more than 9 o'clock in the evening. The sky was completely dark by now. Scattered stars dotted the cloudless night, and under the silver glow of the crescent moon, a silver-white giant stood in the desolate ruined city. Silence, like a dead thing. Not far away. At the top of a fairly intact building, Baizi looked at the tall black ore that Hoopa took out from the light wheel. He glanced at the pink spar on the ground in front of him again, and his expression gradually became a little weird. These 2 things. They were all left by the Balza brothers and sisters. It was said that it was stored in the desert tower, and it was likely to be destroyed in the subsequent actions, so it was simply given to Baizi. And the reason why Baizi's expression is a bit wrong is not just the preciousness of these 2 things. Although these 2 things are indeed very precious. Heavenly meteorite, ore containing strange cosmic power. Fairy chalcedony, the essence of jade containing pure fairy energy. This is going to give me a core crystallization of the flight system. The star ball that Liakuo is sitting on and the fairy ball of Kangsheng are all gathered together. Although he really wants to make a fairy ball directly, but whether it is some kind of intuition or what he has probably already understood. Now is not the time. Therefore, after taking a look, Baizi put these 2 things into his space backpack. And just when Baizi put on his space backpack again, as if sensing something, he raised his head and turned his eyes to a certain direction in the night sky. Are you back? Moment. As if completely integrated into the night. Necrozma quietly landed in front of Baizi. How is it? Is everything set up? Looking at Karuna's face, these tens of thousands of people and elves, including a bunch of planes and giant ships, it is naturally impossible for Baizi to let Necrozma come back with him. Therefore, Baizi has asked Necrozma to simply help Karuna to settle, which can be regarded as an apology for the previous offense. As for the Catalya crowd, before the emergency, he didn't have time to help the other party unlock the mental blockade, so he temporarily left the wind speed dog beside the current Sleepy King, so that Karuna didn't take care of it for a while and accidentally fell asleep somewhere. When he finishes all the things, he will find her to bring the wind speed dog back, and help the other party to unlock the mental blockade on his body. Then, let's begin. Baizi stood up and looked solemnly in Regichkus's direction. In his hands, in a pure crystal, the lightning-like pattern gradually disappeared. 570. Creation, the exclusive Z movement of Ritsu Kongzai. If you want to send Regichkus back, the first difficulty is how to send it into the light wheel. Because as far as the current situation is concerned, once the aura gets close to a certain range, it will cause Regichkus's stress response. As for distance, Baizi, who has absolute memory ability, can accurately estimate the error value to the millimeter. To be precise, it is 19.32 meters. This distance wasn't too far, but comparing the speed of the light wheel with the counterattack speed of Regichkus's stress response, it was obviously far from enough. Therefore, Baizi can only change the method to fix the light wheel at the extreme distance, and then find a way to push Regichkus into the light wheel. And in the process, he has to make sure 1. The power to push Regichkus must be enough to drive and push his huge body into the light wheel. 2. The speed of the pushing process must be faster than Regichkus's stress response, and lastly, it must be able to avoid Regichkus's stress counterattack. To do both, speed, strength and reflexes are all indispensable. And after Baizi's deliberation, this candidate, finally, make sure to give Lai Kong a seat. 437. The time came to 9:30, and at this moment, the bright moon was hanging high. Under the silver glow, two incomparably gigantic light wheels stood one after the other at the extreme distance of Regichkus's stress response. And in mid-air, 10,000 meters away from the ground, a light wheel of the same size hangs on it. The light wheel section is a twisted purple black hole with colorful optical fibers at the edge. This is the ultimate hole. And at the other end of the ultimate cave, in the ultimate space, over the dimly lit Ultima Metropolis, the black Lai Kong sitting in its super-evolutionary state is constantly swimming in the nearly liquefied ultimate aura formed by Necrozma. Just as Lai Kongzai was adapting to the ultimate aura. At the same time, Baizi, who was sitting at the top of Lai Kongzai's head, closed his eyes, and constantly used his synchronization ability to conduct spiritual training with Lai Kongzai. Hoopa, who was in the form of punishment, was nestled in the collar of his arms, and also closed his eyes, maintaining the operation of the light wheel. And in Baizi's hands, a diamond-shaped transparent spar was floating in it, slowly turning. Z pure crystal. Or to be precise, this is a pure Z pure crystal that was transformed by Baizi using the power of ultimate authority, without the slightest attribute power. Its predecessor, the electric Z obtained from Kapu Mingming. And now, it is the carrier used by Baizi to create a new Z move. Baizi, who has the same ultimate authority as Necrozma, who has all the sources of Z power, can naturally also do something like this. Same. The only one who has been approved by Lai Kongzai and can achieve synchronization with the other party is only Baizi. What is lacking is the supply of the ultimate aura. But for today's Necrozma, it can be easily provided. And exclude this. The rest is to record the new Z moves. The rationale for this is actually quite simple. Because the Z move was not created out of thin air, but a more original elf move, combined with the power of the ultimate aura, an enhanced version of the move. Just like the general type Z movement, Ultimate Invincible Clash, it was created by combining the general type unique move, Collision, with the ultimate aura. And Solgaleo's exclusive Z movement, Sunshine Under the Sky, is the ultimate enhanced version of the exclusive trick, Meteor Flash Charge. So on. And Bai Zi's choice for Lai Kongxi is naturally the finishing touch. But honestly, creating new Z moves, especially exclusive Z moves, was more difficult than Bai Zi imagined. Because he not only needs to be familiar enough and master the energy running route of Lai Kongxi's exclusive skill, finishing the finishing touch, but also based on this, let the ultimate aura fit this at the same time. It is a perfect increase for the finishing touch. This is not much easier than creating a wizard skill out of thin air. Been for a brief spiritual union with Necrozma when he used the authority of rule, he had gained a lot of knowledge and memory of the use of the ultimate aura. I am afraid that Bai Zi is at a loss for even replicating the existing common Z moves, let alone creating a brand new exclusive Z moves. Time passed by every second. Gradually, Z pure crystal, that was swirling and floating between Bai Zi's hands, a tinge of azure gradually filled it. Finally, completely transformed into the center of the blue spar, the period of the mysterious graphic engraving formed by the combination of delta triangle and infinity ring. Lai Kongxi, done. At this moment, Bai Zi opened his eyes. His blue eyes seemed to be surrounded by clouds and mist, and the burning white thought power seemed to be surging uncontrollably. There is only one chance. Looking at Lai Kong's, which has just been created, but already has a faint feeling of being broken, Bai Zi's eyes narrowed. Or the material is too poor. The thought flashed across his mind. The next moment. Domination. Bai Zi's eyes fell into a kind of daze, and his palm reached out in the direction of Necrozma. In an instant. Under the synchronization of the dominion, power belongs to Necrozma. God, that controls light, carries heat, and dominates the extreme is suddenly generated from Bai Zi's body. 30 seconds. He calmly estimated the limit he could bear, and the ultimate aura originally wrapped around Lai Kongxi quickly converged towards the mid-air, Li Kong's, as if being summoned. Click tilde. In the next second, Bai Zi grasped the azure spar that was crawling up the cracks in front of him, and the spiritual power that could be compared to the realm of the gods instantly completed the synchronization with Lai Kongxi. Oneness of mind. Then, Wu, _ accompanied by the tyrannical dragon roar, the azure light that almost illuminates the small half of the ultimate space suddenly rises up. Chapter 571, The Ultimate Dragon Emperor Different Dimension. The azure light is like a washing horse hanging for 9 days. Under the dazzling brilliance, it is like a round of cyan sun rising high. Scorching sun, formed by the gathered brilliance also seemed to expand to the extreme. In the next instant. Shrink suddenly. Roar. In the melodious sound of the dragon's roar, a dragon plate of light, which seemed to be composed entirely of azure energy, was constantly under the dim curtain of the ultimate world. It seems to be transformed from extremely static to extremely dynamic. Endless surge of energy. Whispered that this was created by him. Lai Kongxi's exclusive Z move. I.e. One by one, the ultimate dragon emperor. Different dimension. It's like sounding the horn of an attack. In an instant, the light dragon burst out like a flying arrow, and went straight into the open hole in the sky. Chirp, _ The roar of gas explosion came. The bursting impact smashed the air into clumps of aerosols that spread over the entire metropolis like a cloud curtain. The whole city was shaken and crumbling. Mid-air. Necrozma glanced at the devastated metropolis with a sense of feeling, then turned around and followed into the ultimate cave. With the closure of the ultimate hole. Sip. A dull, like a broken iron cable, suddenly sounded from the bottom of the metropolis. Immediately after. The explosions like firecrackers sounded one after another. Afterwards, the nearby ground where the explosion came out gradually softened to a deep red like gold under high temperature. In the cave that collapsed, a bat-winged lion-shaped beast that was scarlet and evil, but shone brightly and splendidly, rushed out instantly, its claws stepped on the void, and its blood wings flew up, looking up to the sky, sending out a bright and strange sound. Roar. El-Amma. On the other hand, in the main world. At this moment. Roar. A melodious dragon roar resounded in the ears of all humans and elves in the Carlos area. Next second. The azure light curtain quickly spread out, covering the entire western region of the Carlos continent, including the outer sea. What's the matter? I'm going. Why is the sky green? I thought I was the only one who heard it. I heard that too. And this weird sky. I heard before that the desert city along the coast seemed to be attacked by the legendary elves. Isn't this going to hit the inland? I don't know. By the way, do legendary Pokemon really exist? I always thought it was just a myth and legend. Of course it exists. I am the one who escaped from the desert city, the huge white demon like a mountain, and the black hero who rescued us in crisis. That must be the legendary spirit. It's Kamisama. The riots caused by the desert city have caused many residents of Carlos to sleepless tonight. The strange dragon roar and the strange celestial phenomenon spread out from the sky, which seems to be true and illusory, make Carlos's network more difficult. The network was completely boiling. Is that you? Nier City is located in the central area of Carlos, and the sound of dragon roars and the blue light curtain can be reached. The outskirts of the city, Karuna, who was discussing the resettlement of refugees with the local chief and the alliance administrators, raised her head amidst the noise. There was obvious fatigue and a hint of worry that was hard to see between her brows, and her light-colored pupils lifted up to look at the west bank. For a while, my heart was full of mixed feelings. At the same time, 10,000 meters above the sky, Wenbaizi rode Lycong, who turned into a dragon of light, and sat out of the ultimate hole, directly submerging the light wheel in front of the fiber optic wormhole. This short-lived exposure of breath, which was only for a moment, actually caused Regichkas's stress response. The immersed Holy Pillar King's lamp eyes flashed, and the right side of the naturally sagging right the arm also slammed into the sky as if there was no backswing. Boom. The gas explosion pushed upwards layer by layer, and in the blink of an eye, the light wheel that would be erected high in the sky was shaky. And Necrozma, who happened to be drilled out of the ultimate hole, hit the blow head-on. Gay. Only before he could subconsciously tighten his body, Necrozma was rushed straight into the stratosphere by the violent air column. Layers of frost just attached to the body. Next second. Scoff. Like touching a soldering iron, it was instantly vaporized into wisps of white mist. Ask for flowers. And below. This strike by Regichkas instead gave Baizi and Lycong a very good opportunity. Because it was at the same time that Regichkas flung this blow. Dragon of Light, formed by Lycong's eye, who rushed out of the light wheel, behind Regichkas, has already crossed the extreme distance of 19.32 meters in the blink of an eye. Lance of Light, that approves the gods, it stabbed straight into Regichka's defenseless back. Boom. The roar of Hongjiang Dalu resounded through the 9 days. The shock of the explosion overflowed. Reggie Caston, who had received this blow, staggered, and involuntarily fell in the direction of the light wheel that was standing upright. But at the same time, Regigikas, who was half on his side, was stumbling, and suddenly swung his right arm, which was raised up to the sky, behind him. But this swift blow smashed into the air. Because the moment the light dragon stabbed Regichkas in the back, it passed through Regichkas's torso as if in a virtual form. Light wheels, in front of Regichkas. Next second. Then it passed through the blur again, and appeared thousands of meters on the back of the light wheel. At the same time, light wheel, in front of it, a twisted spatial singularity suddenly emerged, like a vortex of undercurrents, with a terrifying spatial pulling force, dragging and squeezing crazily. Pressing Rejichka's. And the light wheel also took this opportunity to move forward suddenly, engulfing Rejichka's, whose movement was temporarily restricted by the space vortex. Next second, just before the space curtain in the light wheel ring gradually disappeared. Lay yi ji yi. Boom. The dull low roar was accompanied by a roaring explosion, and at this moment, from the other end of the light wheel, it suddenly spread to. P.S. Thanks to the two book friends, Yuxin Lei and Naihe Piaoling, for providing the names of the Z moves. This time I will use the flying type first, and the dragon type will be reserved for the next time. Bo. JPG. 572. What can't defeat me will eventually make me stronger. Z movement, which is exclusive to the flight system of Lai Kongzai, can be said to be created by BaiZ. But its actual utility is not determined by BaiZ alone. After all, whether it can produce gorgeous flowers really needs the cultivation of craftsmen, but what kind of flowers can be produced is also inseparable from the pros and cons of seeds. The fetters of the finishing touch finally bloomed a different kind of flower. The ultimate dragon emperor. Just like its name, this is the ultimate blow that has a twisted space, vanishes and finally strangles and annihilates the opponent. Otherwise, normally, Lai Kongzai's flight type Z movement should be extremely fast dive and bang. 437. It was successful. Slowly exiting from the state of domination, looking at the fine sand slowly scattered from the palm of his hand, the sudden emptiness from his body made BaiZ feel a sense of weakness. However, BaiZ knew very well that this was just the gap caused by the sudden lack of strength. Of course, exercising the power of dominance really made him consume a lot. As for fine sand, naturally, it was transformed by the Likong Z spar. As BaiZ said before, the material of the carrier spar used to make Likong Z is too poor. It is impossible to carry this unprecedented exclusive Z move of Lai Kongzai. At least, to be the same material as Solgaleo or Lunara's exclusive Z pure crystal. At the same time, as the blow was completely poured out, Lai Kongzai, who had been winding forward for several miles, slowly stagnated. The light armor that was wrapped around the body suddenly burst open, turned into the ultimate aura and flight attribute factors, slowly scattered from the original place, and merged into the vast world. Roar tilde. And in the verdant light spot in the sky, Lai Kongzai's black and slender dragon body reappears, looks up to the sky, and makes a happy dragon roar. Call. Punishing Hoopa in his arms also sighed with relief, and his small body lay in BaiZ's arms. Soon, two golden rings appeared out of thin air, and they shrunk quickly, one left and one right hanging on the corners of the two small chairs of punishment Hoopa. Okay, let's go back. After a moment of relief, BaiZ, who felt much better, patted the headgear that Lai Kong was sitting on. And just when Lai Kongzai was about to turn around and rush back to the desert city, you commanded Lai Kongzai to repel Rejichka's, and gained a little battle experience value plus 500, spiritual attribute plus 1000, Lai Kongzai experience value plus 1, dragon law comprehension plus 20%, research extreme dragon emperor different dimension proficiency plus 50. Ding, heaven rewards diligence, leap forward reward. Lai Kongzai obtains the mark of creation level power. One time, it contains the power of creation power. The system beep suddenly sounded. And with this, humph tilde. BaiZ only felt a bulge in his temples, and the spiritual power in his mind seemed to grow out of thin air, and he began to passively purify and refine the spiritual power he possessed, so that his superpowers will also increase synchronously. At the same time, roar. Lai Kongzai suddenly let out a dull low roar, Longwei spread out uncontrollably, and his breath was rising steadily. At the same time, the blue-colored flight elements spontaneously gathered and submerged into the dragon body that Lai Kong was sitting on. This process lasted for a few minutes. This transformation was not officially over until Necrozma and King Shang came one after another. With a mysterious golden mark on the top of Lai Kongxi's head, it disappeared. Moment. A dull air pressure spread out spontaneously. Although it was quickly restrained by Lai Kongxi in the first time, it also stretched for several miles. Baizi was immediately protected by the divine power that punished Hupa. King Shang and Necrozma, who still maintained their King of Swords form, couldn't help but stagnate. Afterwards, they both looked at the aura fluctuations and looked a little vain. The Lai Kong sitting. Although is the spirit of Baizi. Even the later Necrozma already knew the various magical powers Baizi possessed. Especially the inexplicable feedback after battle and training. But knowing is knowing. They even experienced it not long ago. But when Lai Kongxi relied on this, after completing the task of repelling Regichkas, he jumped to the limit of the god's domain and directly stepped into the power of the creation domain. Neither Necrozma nor King Shang, who was not fighting, couldn't help but sway for a while. If I were to fight off Regichkas. This thought could not be suppressed from the minds of both of them. Although they were quickly suppressed by each of them. But this moment. Both King Shang and Necrozma have made up their minds. The next time they encounter other powerful legends, they must be strong first. Well, let's be a little harder. Thinking of the harvest of the battle not long ago, the two added in their hearts. Of course. This thought also arises in Lai Kongxi's mind, who has tasted the great sweetness for the first time. Baizi obviously didn't know what Necrozma was thinking. Raise your hand slightly. Feeling the power of the mind condensed in the palm of the hand, which is almost enhanced by 50%, I am very satisfied. And after checking the data panel of Lai Kongxi at this time, I am even more satisfied. The level has reached the limit of the first level god of level 120. That is to say, in terms of energy level, Lai Kongxi is already the threshold for entering the field of creation. Plus the enhanced Dragon 4.3 law comprehension and creation level, creation, powers. Lai Kong is now sitting. It's not as far away as before, but he already has enough confidence to meet Regichka's head-on. It can be said that it has benefited a lot. What is there to say? Those who can't defeat me will eventually make us stronger. This sentence has the God rewards for diligence system, is also fully qualified to say it. Regichkas, including all opponents and enemies on his path, will become and will only become for him, move towards the strongest resources. 573. The man who made the gods, the guardian of order, Zygarde. The events in the desert city spread too far and there were so many witnesses that it was obviously impossible to hide. That night, the legendary battle about the desert city quickly fermented on the Elves Online, and the entire Elves world caused an uproar. Even directly covered the heat of the tournament. Desert City War, legendary evil gods and heroes, the man who envoys the gods. Wait a minute, a series of entries about the sub-vice immediately rushed to and occupied all the hot searches of the top 100 articles on elf.com. Including Carlos, even Galar, which is holding a tournament in full swing, various alliances, Chable forces, and major underground organizations that are intertwined. All of them found out the specific information about the legendary battle that took place in the desert city at the first time. Use the golden halo to summon and control the legendary six-armed monster. Dialga, the 25 gods of time, in the legend of Shanao. In the region of Fangyuan, according to legend, the super ancient elves, Groudon, and Kyogre who created the earth and the sea respectively. A legendary group living in the ozone layer of the planet in the fairy world, a shining individual with the title of the god of the sky, Black Ricora. Suspected of a super energy system, a black crystal life with unknown light skills. Legend has it that one of the heroes who rescued the Galar region 3,000 years ago was called the King of Swords. And in the end, the supernatural power that can be turned upside down at every turn. Legend has it that the giant Regikikas, who used ropes to drag continental plates to create the ancient mystical land. There are 8 of these well-known unknowns, known and unknown, who participated in the Battle of Legends that took place in the desert city of Carlos. And from the perspective of their performance, I am afraid that without exception, they are all top-level legends that are comparable to, or even surpass, Groudon, the god of the earth. Even more unimaginable. Among these legendary elves that have been passed down since ancient times, compared and respected as gods, there are a full 3 of them are entrusted by a human trainer. By Z. Silent conference rooms, rooms full of instruments, brightly lit halls. Dim or bright, Kanto and even Alola, bright or dark, countless, big men, were all there today. I deeply remember this name. In fact, Baizi had already anticipated the situation that he would be exposed to countless gazes after this campaign. Or, from the moment he flew out of Junshin town with Lai Kongzi. Baizi has already decided to change the original, hidden and tucked, style of doing things. Since you want to test yourself. So simply, let you see enough. To be honest, Baizi really wants to know that right now, or, in other words, those behind-the-scenes black people really know the power he possesses. After they truly understand who they are about to face, what kind of expressions will they look like? That must be quite exciting. As for the dog jumping off the wall, that the other party may exist. At this point, Baizi has already made arrangements. Among them, Serena kept Junshinjun, and later he also sent Pheromaloth back to Junshinjun for her self-defense. As for Mei and Lusamanai, he also warned him. With Tuzi, the real hero, no one can hurt her under the eyes of a dragon god who is close to the pinnacle of God's domain unless she faces other high-ranking or even top legends. Them. And Natsu. According to her parents, Natsu seems to have gone to a rather secret clan to cultivate, which is the core of their superpower clan. Possesses enough power to deter the Elf Alliance. Therefore. But there is no need to worry about Natsu's safety. At this moment, in the desolate city full of chaos. The moon hangs in the sky. The top of the building covered in silver light. Temporarily took Lai Kongzai and Necrozma back to Baizi in the Pokeball. At this time, they were sitting on the back of Kang Sheng, who still maintained the form of the King of Swords. He looked nervously at the petite figure floating in front of him, closing his eyes to sense something. Time goes by slowly. Suddenly. Hoopa has been found. Accompanied by Gong Tingyan full of surprises, Hoopa's little hand to punish Hoopa moved again and again, and the golden ring that flew in front of him suddenly expanded rapidly. Following this, a blue space curtain was also born in the ring. On the other side, is Giratina's place. Well, Hoopa is sure. Facing Baizi's inquiry, punishing Hoopa lit his little head heavily, and responded with great certainty. Well, let's go. Wu tilde. When Baizi tucked punishment Hoopa into the collar and zipped up the zipper, King Shang fit him straight, and went straight into the light wheel. Immediately afterwards, the light wheel gradually disappeared into the void, leaving a desolate and silent city. The complete disappearance of Baizi's light wheel. 437 squeaky, _. With the impact of the Q-bomb, a blue hexagonal pattern on the chest and abdomen, but the palm-sized green planarian jumped from the dark to the position where Baizi was just now. At such a close distance, whether it was Baizi, King Shang or even Hoopa, none of them noticed anything. And this moment. The weak-looking elf stood there for a few seconds. A tender, yet unique telepathy with a bizarre aria sounded slowly under the moonlight. Humans who harness God's power. Moment. Oh Wu tilde. A little green light suddenly shot out from all over the city, turning into rays that converged on the Planarworm. In the next instant, the green Doberman Pinscher, which was deformed from the white light, bent his knees slightly. Suddenly. Jumped straight down from the towering building. If Baizi can see this scene at this moment, he must be able to recognize that the elf in front of him is supervising the order of the ecological system balance in the entire Carlos region. Defender. Zygarde. 574. Giratina, no martial arts. And the other side. It was like passing through a layer of water that would not be soaked, and in the next second, Baizi entered a dark world. As far as the eye can see, the whole world is composed of large and small, floating islands. There are upside-down trees, upside-down waterfalls, and upside-down water surfaces on the floating island. Everything is upside down, arranged in messy piles that can't reach the sky or the ground. In the deep world. Reverse the world one by one. Or called, the ruined world. Here. It is one of the parallel spaces in the main world of the elf, and it is also its opposite and more interdependent. And just when Baizi rode King Shang to cross the light wheel, and fell on a 10-square-meter floating island while punishing Hoopa in his arms to take back the light wheel. Just looked up. They met with a pair of scarlet eyes the size of someone else's head. ... Around the pair of scarlet pupils, the dark gray faces wrapped under the golden head armor in the shape of triangular flying wings, and the golden half-ring-like claws wraps around its neck from the back, black and red. The interstitial stripes are distributed horizontally on the front of the neck of the bobbit-like body. On the long snake body, 5 pairs of gray spikes with golden ends grow on both sides of the black and red lines. 3 pairs of dark, phantom-like, striped wings float behind it, with red tips like poisonous thorns. Baizi's eyes twitched. Because in front of him, this behemoth that was quietly suspended in midair, only 110 meters away from him. Exactly the inverted world master. With titles such as Pluto Dragon and Ghost Dragon. Giratina in origin form. Almost subconsciously, in the blue eyes of Baizi shone a bright star that no one could see. Next second, Giratina's data panel appeared in Baizi's eyes one by one. Race, Giratina, original form, other forms. Attribute, Ghost Dragon. Characteristics, floating pressure, telepathy, Monty. Level 1 God Peak, level 119, 99 100ths. Potential, level 1 God, extreme. HP, 150, attack, 120 100ths, defense, 100 120ths, special attack, 120 100ths, special defense, 100 120ths, speed, 90. Exclusive skill, Shadow Sneak Attack. Skills, Shadow Sneak Attack, Clearing Thick Fog, Dragon Breath, Primal Power, Misfortune Comes Alone, Splitting, Ghost Face, Shadow Claw, Sharing Pain, Wave Missile, Dragon Claw, Earth Power, Same Fate. Law Comprehension, Ghost 100%. Authority, Antimatter. Status, Poor. Introduction. The ghost dragon born from the shadow of creation, the master of the reversal world, has the ability to travel freely between the two worlds. Pluto Dragon, Giratina, tilde. Baizi's eyes narrowed slightly. Although it can be said that it was aimed at this guy, he never expected that as soon as he entered the inversion world, he would directly confront the other party. Although he does not possess the power, and the level has not reached the limit of breaking through the realm of the gods. But just comprehending 100% of the power of the ghost-type law was enough to see how extraordinary Giratina was. But think about it. In addition to the 2 places in Guandu, the 3 gods, in other regions basically have one of the strongest. As familiar Raikongza with Groudon and Kyogre, Hiram of Union with Reshiram and Zekrom, Necrozma of Allura with Solgaleo and Lunaya Ra, Carlos Zygarde with Xerneas and Yveltal. Giratina is the same. But it was supposed to be the mediator between Dialga and Palkia, but it basically didn't bother to pay attention to those 2 guys who basically met each other. But if you fight, neither Dialga nor Palkia are enough for Giratina to beat with a single dragon. And in fact, in the 2-episode theatrical version of the anime, Giratina has beaten these 2 goods more than once for various reasons. But this was not enough to shake Bai Zi's determination. If Giratina couldn't hand over Xiao Huang intact, he wouldn't care who the other party was, the god of 3 dragons and the lord of reversal. It's not like he hasn't beaten the legendary elves of the god's domain. Mind turning. Just when Bai Zi was about to take the initiative to ask Giratina about Xiao Huang's whereabouts, a gentle force came from Kangshang under him, sending him directly to another floating island not far behind. And then, ow! Roar! Gay! Accompanied by successive roars, came Jing, and the 3 of them, Ritsukusa and Necrozma, who suddenly escaped from the Pokeball on Bai Zi's waist. All of them looked murderous, bursting out with terrifying coercion, rushing towards Giratina. Bai Zi's face turned pale, a little confused about the situation. Besides, let alone Bai Zi, even Giratina has a question mark on his head. What the hell, do we have any grudges? But at the moment, the attack has come. In the face of the long, loud kiss, the huge sword shadow that slashed down and stretched for dozens of meters, Giratina only had time to run the steel-type energy, and put the shiny metallic headgear. And greeted the sword shadow that slashed down towards Kangshang. ... Iron Head vs Holy Sword. Bang! The sound of golden iron cries resounded, and the energy impact generated by the collision between the 2 sides instantly smashed the nearby floating island into livestock powder. The spreading shock ripples smashed the farther floating islands into slag one by one like crushing tofu blocks, clearing a large area. Even Bai Zi was wrapped in energy by Hoopa before the terrifying impact came, and was dragged to the aerial sky. At the same time, "Are you okay, Zhao? Holy Sword," from Kangshang. As the light flickered, Giratina, who was about to enter the shadows, suddenly froze. All around, the translucent psychic light beams imprisoned Giratina in place. Immediately after, a green shadow flew at a terrifying, divine speed, twisting and changing directions in midair, a tail flick, and a heavy swipe from the bottom to the bottom of Giratina. Wide area destruction. In the uncontrollable muffled sound, Giratina's head was raised high by the slamming of Lai Kong's eye, and a strong sense of dizziness came. A second before the loss of consciousness. An incomparably sad and indignant thought also emerged in my heart. Mad, don't talk about martial arts. P.S. This picture is handsome tilde. 575. If you ask a question, you will call me like this. Boom, _. Giratina, who had been hit by Lai Kongzai's powerful blow, flew backwards in an instant, crushing the floating islands along the way to create a gravel path that was more than 1,000 meters long, before it was able to stop. Next second. Giratina's scarlet pupils, who had regained stability, filled with astonishing savagery along with a rust-like roar of rage. The ghostly energy that spewed out surrounded Giratina like a dark fog. Impressive, terrifying. Like the demon god in the thick fog of the abyss, towards the attackers on the opposite side, he released terrifying energy level fluctuations and killing intent. You seek death. Giratina was really angry. After all, whoever stays at home and hangs out, suddenly a group of uninvited guests come to your house, and if you don't say anything, it will be a set of big sinuses, and you will be angry. Not to mention, Giratina's temperament is a rather irascible lord. After being bullied like this, how could it be possible to give up? Isn't it 3-on-1? What are you afraid of? It is Giratina uncle who is almost used to playing 2 games every day. Now, even if there is one more, it is not afraid at all. Come fight. Anger in the heart 453. The fire and war will rise. All of a sudden, a thick black shadow like silk quickly emerged from Giratina's body, completely wrapping it in the blink of an eye. Immediately after, Giratina jumped. Like a flood dragon entering the water, it dived toward the pitch-black quagmire that also emerged from below. This was the prelude to Giratina's exclusive trick, Shadow Sneak. Black silt that appeared around it and the ground was actually a special shadow created by the ghost factor. Most of the ghost-type elves can use similar means to achieve semi-energy transformation of their bodies, so as to conceal and move. Giratina's exclusive trick, Shadow Sneak, is also achieved through this. But just before Giratina was about to sink into this dark, shadow pool, a solid thought force turned into a transparent crystal wall, directly blocking the two. Thump, underscore. The dull hum of the drumstick hitting the bell resounded, and the defenseless Giratina suddenly slammed into the thick wall of thought power. The brain hums and trembles. The upside-down figure tilted to one side uncontrollably. And the next second, CFED. Swoosh. In the corner of the light, a familiar black dragon shadow came through the air again, and the slender dragon tail wrapped in layers of green light drew towards his face too. The dragon tail. This is so. The corners of Giratina's eyes twitched wildly, and 6 streamer-like wings behind him were immediately weaved up, using the steel wings to harden, weaving a grid, which stopped Lai Kong sitting in front of him. Choke. The sound of the symphony of gold and iron was resonant, and the turbulent waves rolled up from between the two again, spreading out a ring of ripples. The force came. Lai Kong sat on the path and twisted the dragon's body, and easily resolved the aftermath. Giratina is not so cool. It was in a state of unsteady footing, and the aftermath of the impact caused its center of gravity to become disordered again, and it rolled out in midair in embarrassment. And right now. Wu tilde. With the low humming, the bright king sword, held in Kang Zhang's mouth in the King of Swords attitude suddenly soared and turned into a dazzling streamer. Coming first, and Giratina, passing by in an instant. Behemoth slash. Instant, the golden sword shadows that exploded one after another filled the heaven and the earth. In just one staggered moment, the sword's blade had already slashed 3 times. Gia. The heart-wrenching pain made Giratina completely manic, and in the roar, the dark ribbon needles slammed out abruptly. But a pity. This note of shadow claw was swept away. And take this time. Necrozma's giant claws, which had been silently touching Giratina's side, suddenly pushed forward, and the dazzling light suddenly turned into a torrent. Above the dragon body. Photon surge. The turbulent high-temperature impact fell like the rod of God, and in the painful scream, Giratina only had time to avoid the vital parts exposed on the top of the head, and the huge body finally couldn't support it. Balanced, falling powerlessly into the bottomless darkness. But even so, as Lai Kong took the lead in chasing down with a flick of the dragon's tail, Kang Shang and Necrozma followed closely behind. Baizi was stunned when he saw that attitude of, I will never give up until the opponent is completely wiped out. By the way, isn't Giratina very popular in your legend circle? Baizi asked, looking at Hoopa, who was wrapping himself with an energy level shield beside him. Ah, this. Hoopa shook his head with a confused expression, indicating that the legend circle is too chaotic, and it is not very clear about many things. One by one looked at each other. The roar and roar kept coming. After about 11 bangs, Lai Kongzai, Kang Shang, and Necrozma joined forces to defeat Giratina, and gained a little. The energy level has been purified to a certain extent, the ability to comprehend the law has been improved, and the skill proficiency has been improved. Have to strengthen. Close black lens bracket. As the system beeps sound. And lean. Lai Kongzai, Kang Shang, and Necrozma, who were all happy with a hint of regret, flew and returned. Sip tilde. Hanging in the air, Giratina, who was locked to death by the psychic power like a substance, was thrown down by Necrozma and fell on the ground not far in front of Baizi. Puffs of smoke splattered. Moment. The smoke dissipated. The rather serious Giratina humiliatingly swept over Lai Kongzai, Kang Shang, and Necrozma one by one, and immediately turned his hateful gaze to Baizi. No, shameless. If you have the ability, one-on-one. Baizi. This is not the case. Ask yourself. If this happened to him, he would be suffocated, let alone Giratina who had lived for an unknown number of years. It was probably the first time it had ever been surrounded by people and beaten in turn. And to be honest, Baizi was indeed a little confused as to why the three of them would be so active this time around Kong. But this is obviously not the time to ask this. Cough tilde. With a slightly embarrassed dry cough, Baizi tried his best to make his voice not sound like coercion, so that the other party would not have unnecessary rebellious psychology. Giratina, I just have a question for you. Giratina. Question. Why did you hit me like this just to ask a question? Well, the other party seems to be more angry. 576. A supernatural event, an invisible unknown existence. You. Almost visible to the naked eye, Giratina's body trembled slightly with anger, and the black mist rose up unconsciously, and the thought power that locked its body was consumed by each other. Causes the corrosive sound of pee-pee. Immediately, Necrozma's painted parts flickered, and Lai Kongzai and Kangshang also turned their slightly cold eyes to Giratina. Baizi shook his head invisibly, indicating that he should not act rashly for the time being. And after Giratina glared at Baizi for a long time, in the end, it was still angry, closed its eyes and said, "The winner is the king, you ask." The winner is the king. Baizi forcibly stopped the phrase, "What if you were to follow me," that he almost blurted out. Hand moves. In midair, use the power of thought to outline the appearance of Xiao Huang, Tilda Shen said. I think you should remember her. A few days ago, the human girl you, taken, from the permafrost plains in the Sheno region, where is she? Baizi's eyes were burning. Since he entered the reversed world, he has been fully operating the spiritual exploration, but I don't know if it is the distance or the characteristics of the reversed world, except for fighting in a group several legends of, he did not sense even the slightest life, breath. Only. I don't know if it's an illusion, since he entered the reversal world, he has had some kind of weird throbbing. It seems that he has something important that has been left behind. Got here somewhere. It should be Xiao Huang. This thought flashed through Baizi's mind. And soon, his attention was caught by Giratina's words. Little yellow. Baizi's eyes flashed. You know her. It's an acquaintance. Giratina glanced at Baizi and replied. Or to be more precise, I know her partner Shemi. It turns out that you came here for the reversal space, for Xiao Huang. Before, because I sensed that Xie Mi was in danger, I rescued her and Xie Mi together, and brought her into the reverse world. The world. I have to say, that little girl named Xiao Huang is the purest human being I have ever seen. Having said that, Giratina's tone didn't feel a little sigh. Obviously. Xiao Huang left quite a deep impression on it. Baizi didn't care about this, but asked directly, so, where is she now? She. Giratina's voice suddenly became condensed. She is missing, with Xie Mi. Missing. Baizi's volume was instantly raised several degrees, and under the wrapping of his mind power, he went straight to Giratina and stared at the other party's scarlet eyes. Giratina, I hope you can make it clear. Giratina didn't care about the coldness in Baizi's tone. Because of this urgency, it also felt the same. How do you say it? This matter should start from 16 years ago. Baizi frowned, but did not interrupt. He stepped back slightly. After getting away from Giratina, he motioned Necrozma to release Giratina's restraints. Giratina gave Baizi a slightly surprised look. Then, he lay directly on the floating island under him, and continued. One day 16 years ago, when I was wandering aimlessly in the reverse world, I suddenly felt a throbbing. There is something that has entered the reverse world, through a certain way. Originally, I thought that it was the two guys who fought when they had nothing to do, and again invaded my territory because of the influence of the time and space ripples. Therefore, I rushed over immediately and prepared to teach the other party a profound lesson. But when I arrived, I found that there was nothing there. Nothing. But at the same time, I can clearly feel that I'm around me, that kind of peeping feeling. At first I thought it was some kind of special stealth ability, or a semi-energy like our ghost system. But even if I carry out an indiscriminate coverage attack, or even enter the energy by myself quantitative state search, I'll come up with nothing. But the sense of voyeurism is so real. I can feel that the other party is near me, even watching me from a close distance. ... Ask for flowers. It wasn't until the other party seemed to determine something from me that this sense of peeping completely disappeared. This matter seemed to have been suppressed in Giratina's heart for a long time, so that even Baizi could easily detect and perceive its undulating mental fluctuations. It doesn't lie. But is it possible? An unknown, invisible and unknowable existence that even Giratina, whose tracking ability is among the best in many legends, cannot be detected. This is definitely not talking about supernatural event. Even if it is a supernatural event. But in the elf world, most of the so-called supernatural events are only caused by ghost-type elves. But Giratina itself is the top legend of the ghost system. Could there really be other ghost-type spirits that could make Giratina so helpless? Although he had doubts in his heart, Baizi did not refute it. As a result, Giratina was unnecessary, and he could indeed feel that the other party was not lying. Secondly, the spirit world itself has a bit of supernatural color. Whether it is the girl ghost of Maiden Gorge, or the ghost girl who walked out of the spirit world, in the ruins of the top of the mountain, they are all ghosts. All of them show that ghosts do exist in the wizard world. The so-called spirit world itself is also considered to be the habitat of some ghosts and ghost elves, and is the world after death. In addition, Baizi is not sure whether he will release a new generation and launch any new elves after he crosses over. Unspecified. Is it really a perverted eudemons like Hoopa with the ability to surpass the top legends of the same type? All kinds of thoughts flashed away. Baizi remained calm, and motioned to Giratina. Quote. Continue. P.S. Let's take a guess, what is this unknown existence? Promotion. One of the only two ordinary elves that the protagonist has to conquer. Beg. 577. Ghostly Dragon Serpent, Doran Baruto. By the way, have you ever thought about, Baizi added, spiritual world? Of course I have thought about it. In fact, after the incident, I went to the spirit world more than once to explore. Giratina shook her head. But that world is very special. Except for the spiritual body and a few special elves, the rest of the existence cannot enter at all. Also, they can only operate on the surface of the spirit world. Even me, even if I forcibly break into the spirit world, with the power of the law of the ghost attribute, I can only enter the surface layer, and will soon be forcibly rejected by the world. Come out, let alone enter the deep area of the spiritual world. Is that so? Baizi's eyes flashed with 4, 5, 3 thoughts, and then he said, then what's next? The next thing is a few days ago. Giratina continued. At that time, after saving Shemi and that little girl, I led them around the reverse world for a few laps. Afterwards, after I asked Shemi to help me clear the fog miasma. That is, after the real world was severely damaged, the black fog-like objects produced in the reversed world, quality time. Shemi, who absorbed the fog miasma, and used the seed flash skill to dispel it, and Xiaohuang, who was not far from it, disappeared from my eyes as if being swallowed up by something. Lost. At that moment, I seemed to vaguely see a translucent body shaped like a dragon and snake. Although this was the first time I had witnessed its shape, and it was very vague. But at that moment, the sense of peeping that was so familiar to me convinced me that this guy was definitely the unknown existence from 16 years ago. And the way it kidnapped Xiaohuang and Shemi also allowed me to confirm another message. That guy. Giratina's tone was decisive. It's a ghost-type elf. After listening to Giratina's story, Baizi fell into deep silence for a while. Among the known ghost-type elves, those who could match Giratina Banban's arms, except for themselves, only Lunara and Liguan Wang rode on black horses. Lunayala ruled out first. After all, Necrozma is here. It is estimated that it is too late to hide, and it is obviously impossible to run up and give people the head. King Liguan and his dark horse, Spirit Horse, lived in seclusion on the crowned snowfield of Galar, and it was impossible for them to run over thousands of miles to meet Giratina. Not to mention, King Liguan is a legendary king with the style of a king, and he can't do things like secretly peeping and unprovoked plundering. In this case, is it really possible that it is some unknown ghost-type phantom beast? But say it. According to Giratina's description, like a dragon and snake, this posture is somewhat like the quasi-god of the Galar region, Doran Baruto. But Baizi quickly put the idea behind him. Because ordinary elves, even quasi-gods, compared with legendary elves, especially top-level legends, the gap between them is simply immeasurable. After all, not all elves can be compared with those in Baizi's hands, who can be called the protagonist templates. All kinds of adventures and treasures, coupled with Baizi's continuous opening and hanging. Even so. Now, in terms of talent and potential, it is only 3 fellows, Big Needle Bee, Shinado, and Leo Lu, who can rival the top legends. In terms of hard power, there is none. Doran Baruto. Even the racial king of the ethnic group is simply impossible. After thinking for a long time, Baizi, who still had no clues, decided to go to the place where Xiao Huang disappeared to investigate. This is the only possible way for now. Giratina, please take us to the place where Xiao Huang disappeared. I have a decision in my heart. Baizi naturally didn't want to delay too much. After all, Xiao Huang's whereabouts are still unknown. Although he is not at a loss because of his temperament, the depression in his heart has already accumulated to the extreme. You come with me. Before departure, Giratina's rust-like telepathic voice reminded. Subsequently, it turned into its original form again, and traveled to the depths of the reversed world. Let's follow too. Baizi rolled over and sat on Kang Zhang's back. In an instant, a faint pink-purple soft light emerged from Kang Zhang's body, and soon a light pink honeycomb grid-like shield was formed, wrapping Baizi in it. On the other hand, Lai Kongzai and Necrozma were guarding both sides, almost as if they were facing a great enemy, raising their vigilance. Even Hoopa. As if reminded by one of the seniors, he took the ring on his waist nervously in his hand. It was as if he was planning to use the light wheel to escape at any time. No wonder they were so nervous. Even if Giratina was beaten by a few of them, there was no room for him to fight back, but whether it was a former semi-creation level Necrozma or a proud, strong empty seat, he had to admit it. If one-on-one, there is no way they can take down each other so easily. Giratina is not weak. And the tricks are weird, the guys who make Giratina at the peak of God's domain helpless, naturally they can't help but be cautious. The reverse world was silent and dim, and as Garati 4.3 Na kept sneaking downwards, Baizi, who was following behind, gradually discovered it. Further down, it seems that the inverted world is becoming more and more empty and bright. The density of the floating island group is gradually decreasing, and the strange light source that I don't know how to describe dots this deeper and deeper space. In between, it was as if he had penetrated into how you surrounded by stars. Lonely. Vast. With an indescribable beauty of silence. Time passed by minute. Finally, Giratina, who was leading the way, stopped in front of a floating island in the shape of a cross-arch bridge. The destination is here. 578. The fourth creation, the Nether Dragon, the body of imaginary numbers. Tread tilde. As Kang Xiang landed on the side of the cross-arch bridge-shaped floating island, Baizi looked around while spreading his mental energy. Although the reversed world makes it difficult to distinguish between north and south, but according to the sparse division of the floating island group before, this place should already be in a very deep position in the reverse world. After all, under the gloomy sky of whiteness. Except for the only cross-shaped arch-bridge-shaped floating island under their feet. Nothing more. Huh. Wrong. Baizi suddenly cast his gaze to the right below the floating island of the cross-arch bridge. There, a square red brick wall of about 5 or 6 square meters was suspended obliquely in the void. Unremarkable. But combined with the surrounding environment, Baizi's expression suddenly became strange. In this uninhabited place, there is a red brick wall. And Baizi observed carefully. 25 It is found that the red brick wall is not suspended in the air, but more like it is embedded in the void below. It seems that the void itself has a gap, which is used by people. It's like red brick. Out of curiosity, an invisible streamer suddenly appeared in Baizi's eyes, sweeping towards the brick wall. The next second, Spirit Sealing Stone, a special stone ore used to isolate and block the spiritual body, produced in the deep area of the spirit world. Spirit Sealing Stone. Baizi raised his eyebrows slightly. And Giratina also found Baizi's sight and explained to him, there is one of the entrances to the spirit world, but I usually don't enter from here, so as not to break the seal and let the contents run out. Furthermore, it is precisely because this spirit world portal is located that I suspect that the guy may be a creature that came out of the spirit world. Baizi nodded to show his understanding. But somehow, since he entered the reversal world, the throbbing that he had experienced suddenly became stronger than ever before. Seem. Just ahead. Just inside the entrance to the spiritual world, behind the sealed stone wall, there is something, an important thing he left in it a long time ago. Humph tilde. Suddenly, Baizi's brain stabbed like a needle. And then, layers of ripples erupted from the stone wall of Fengeling, and a triangular gray head was drilled out of it. On the extending corners on both sides, there were 4 triangular airports like launch ports, and 2 small triangular airports. The head probes the brain in it. The body like a dragon and snake is revealed, and the tail at the end is gradually transparent. Suspended in midair. A ghost dragon. It is the quasi-god of the Galar region, Duolong Baruto of the Dragon and Secluded series. That's the guy. Baizi was a little stunned, but Giratina's special rust-like telepathy that sounded almost at the same time made Lai Kong sit like a formidable enemy in an instant. And Baizi. He also suddenly narrowed his gaze on the body of Doran Baruto, who was obviously different in color, and broke free from gray and blue. ... This guy is the unknown elf that makes Giratina helpless. I subconsciously, fuck off, in my heart. At the same time. From Baizi's pupils. Race, Delong Baruto, gray-blue flash. Attribute, ghost dragon. Characteristics. Penetration, can penetrate the opponent's obstacle avoidance or stand into attack. Imaginary body, exclusive. Can make oneself and the carried objects enter the surreal imaginary space shape, state. Level 3 God Peak, level 99, 95 100ths. Potential, creation level. HP, 88, attack, 120, defense, 75, special attack, 100, special defense, 75, speed, 142. Exclusive skills. Imaginary, Dragon Arrow. Common skills. Lightning Flash, Dragon Breath, Raid, Scare, Lock, Malicious Pursuit, Misfortune Comes Alone, High-Speed Movement, Double Attack, Rapid Return, Dragon Dance, Hidden Spirit Surprise, Dragon God Swoops. Close Black Lens Bracket. Genetic Skill, Curse. Status, Perfect. Power, Imaginary Number. Carrying items, Xiao Huang, Xie Mi, etc. Introduction. A ghostly dragon born from the soul of another world from the deep sea of the spiritual world, a natural hider, with the ability to traverse the boundaries of virtual and real at will. Hi. Even with Baizi's temperament and vision, he couldn't help taking a deep breath after reading the data panel of the Doran Baruto in front of him. Abnormal. So perverted. Especially the exclusive feature, the body of imaginary numbers, Compared to that, even its potential, which is comparable to Hoopa's fourth creation field, is a bit dwarfed. So-called imaginary number is used as an auxiliary number relative to the real number in mathematics. Everything in reality is described by real numbers, and the world described by imaginary numbers does not exist in the physical sense. Broadly speaking, any world described beyond real numbers can be called imaginary number space, which even goes beyond multiple and rises to the concept of latitude. Put another way, analogy. In the fairy world, as long as all things, energies and general ideas that can be defined will have no effect on their corresponding imaginary numbers. That is to say, as long as the Duolong Baruto in front of him enters the imaginary space, then in theory, all existences in this world will not be able to harm it. This is so special that it is no different from opening an invincible hang. But this carrying thing. Through the information on the system interface, Baizi quickly noticed that in the body of the 3-meter-long Duolong Baruto, the figure of Xiao Huang, who was holding Xie Mi, was floating comfortably in it. Middle. Now, seeing Baizi's attention, this little girl, who was obviously not hurt in any way, blinked her big watery eyes twice, and showed an innocent sneer at Baizi. Baizi. The corners of his mouth twitched uncontrollably. But seeing Xiao Huang, who was safe and sound for the time being, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. I'll settle the account with you again. After giving Xiaonizi a vicious look, Baizi shifted his gaze and turned his gaze to the moment his expression was not so friendly. On Long Baruto. 579. Hoopa, who was mischievous, Doran Baruto, who couldn't communicate please order. From the moment when this strange-colored flashing Doran Baruto appeared in front of him, the throbbing in Baizi's heart became stronger and stronger. At the same time, there was an unspeakable kind of unspoken feeling that seemed to be lost and found. Move. This feeling. Baizi subconsciously held his heart, and looked suspiciously at Duolong Baruto's bright yellow pupils, which were mixed with ecstasy and anger. Introduction. Column appeared subconsciously. A ghostly dragon born out of the deep sea of the spiritual world by the soul of another world. The soul of another world. Is it? Combined with the description in the introduction, and the unspeakable throbbing in his heart, Baizi's eyes suddenly lit up. But if it is what he thought, the joy is understandable, but where does the anger in it come from? This idea has just occurred. Next second. Roar. Duolong Baruto roared in a low voice, a strange, ruthless special aura spreading across the world, like a mist that dissipates at a touch. Immediately after, its gray-blue body suddenly turned phantom. Roar. Ow. Gay. The successive roars sounded, and one after another, law protection and nirvana suddenly rose up around Baizi's body, turning into layers of protective walls to wrap him layer by layer. But in the next instant, Baizi only felt that his body suddenly entered a cool semi-fluid, and then, accompanied by Xiangyu's soft embrace, the slightly blurred scene suddenly changed rapidly. In the blink of an eye, they had been taken out of the layers of protection under Li Kongxi and they had unknowingly been brought out, and they came to a void not far from Li Kongxi and they stopped. This is. Baizi looked around. He soon discovered that he was in the body of Doran Baruto. This is the specialty of many non-solid ghost-type elves. And it is precisely because of this characteristic that ghost-type elves have also become recognized by many trainers as one of the two best choices for body-protecting elves. As for the other, naturally, it is a super-type elves who generally possess the power of thought and teleportation skills. Roar tilde tilde. Duolong Baruto, who swept away Baizi, was obviously very happy, and Baizi could easily feel the joy and moisturizing from the other party's cry. Even the two little guys on its forehead kept making a cheerful cry of, Mea Mea. Brother Baizi. Xiao Huang, who fell into Baizi's arms, was blushing, and his hands were nervously clutching Baizi's collar. His shy voice attracted Baizi's attention. It's all right. Rubbing the little girl's soft hair, Baizi comforted her. Now he has found out. I am afraid that Doran Baruto really has a lot to do with him, and that anger is probably because it misunderstood something. At the same time, realizing that Baizi was taken away, Lai Kongzai, Kang Shang, and Necrozma immediately surrounded him. A cold chill rose from the bodies of these three legendary elves. But because Baizi was in the opponent's belly, he was a bit out of luck for a while. Giratina was wandering outside, intentionally or unintentionally, blocking her huge figure in front of the spirit ceiling stone wall at the entrance of the spiritual world. Instead, he punished Hoopa. Relying on his own dimensional ability, he opened two light wheels directly in front of him, and stretched his hands forward. Next second, two light wheels appeared from behind Duolong Baruto in an instant, and a pair of small gray hands suddenly stretched out and grabbed towards Baizi and Xiaohuang in Duolong Baluto's body. Lai Kong sat, Kang Shang, and their eyes suddenly lit up. In order to cover Hoopa's actions, they all let out a deterrent roar, trying to attract Doran Baruto's attention. The scheme appears to be successful. Doran Baruto shook his big triangular head as if he was really attracted, and the two little guys on his head also looked in other directions. But, as Hoopa was caught, Duolong Baruto and the two Baizi in his body were directly penetrated like an illusory projection. To make a dent. Huh. Hoopa was stunned for a moment, and then, it waved its small hands again and again as if unwilling, just like catching the moon in the water, unable to reach any entity at all. Shout tilde. A cheery laughter suddenly sounded, and Doran Baruto, who had been attracted to the attention, suddenly laughed with a bad expression on his face. He was so angry that he punished Hoopa's three corpses and was almost blackened. So vile, Baizi couldn't help twitching the corners of his mouth. But, while it's unclear what exactly Doran Baruto misunderstood, it's not a good thing to keep their relationship sour. Not to mention, he didn't make a sound to stop it, and Marciado, who was also in the shadow of his own feet and the elves in the Pokeball, would not be able to sit still. At that time, once it is squeezed out of Doran Baruto's body, in the latitude of the same imaginary number space, Baizi also does not know whether it will have any bad influence on Doran Baruto. After all, it is very likely that this Doran Baruto will be the new partner to join his extended family. Doran Baruto, can you let me out? It is not the enemy outside. Baizi patted Doran Baruto's abdomen and said. Gollum. It seemed that he couldn't understand Baizi's meaning at all. After hearing Baizi's voice, Doran Baruto put his big triangular head into his abdomen very intimately. Gently, he pushed Baizi's shoulder on the shoulder, with a puzzled expression. Maya, in the direction of Baizi, and their voices were full of foam. Of joy. Baizi was stunned when he saw this. When I was about to say it again, Xiaohuang's voice sounded in my ear. Brother Baizi, this elf called Doran Baruto doesn't seem to be able to communicate normally with people, including with the elf. It makes me feel as if I can't understand the language between humans, even elves. Can't communicate normally. Baizi frowned slightly. A bow. It happened to meet Doran Baruto's bright yellow eyes. P.S. I'm taking a leave of absence. My eyes are suddenly sore and tearful. I can't stay up all night today. 580. Spiritual World, Deep Sea. Welcome back, Doran Baruto. Please order all. Baizi can clearly feel Duolong Baruto's affection for him, presumably the soul of another world, is talking about himself, right? I just didn't expect that my rebirth actually passed through the spirit world. Is the deep area of the spirit world similar to the place of reincarnation in mythology? This thought flashed in Baizi's mind. Immediately after waving Lai Kong to sit them down and not being impulsive, Baizi tried to communicate with Doran Baruto in Chinese and telepathy respectively. But in the end it all failed. Doran Baruto's consciousness and feelings are not lacking, but it seems that it really doesn't know how to communicate, as Xiaohuang said. Just like It is like a wolf child who has been separated from human society since birth. Perhaps, try homology. Thinking of this, Baizi immediately squinted his eyes and put his hands on the inner wall of Doran Baruto's abdomen. Superpower, synchronization. All of a sudden, the scorching white luster of psychic power was stimulated from Baizi's palms, engulfing DeLong Baruto. The special mental fluctuation instantly linked the spirits of Baizi and Doran Baruto, and gradually merged into one. Doran Baruto's expression froze. Immediately. At the same time, Baizi and Baizi in the body fell into a daze. In a trance, Doran Baruto seems to have come to a colorful world that is completely different from the one he has always lived in. It's here. It witnessed the birth of a newborn baby, the warmth of childhood, the death of his parents, and the gradual emergence of the haze to grow into a handsome boy. Then, encountering the giant needle bee, fighting the gods above the sea, fighting against the legend. In the changing scene, Doran Baruto was like a bystander, reading Baizi a pantomime of superficial memories. Until Baizi stepped into the reverse world, and met it and stopped abruptly. Under the harmony, this selective memory fragment is naturally Baizi's intention. It contains the general memory of the past 16 years. Of course, there is also some knowledge of elf terms. And compared to it, Doran Baruto's spirit was completely open to Baizi. But, compared with Baizi's colorful experience, Doran Baruto is undoubtedly much more monotonous. In its memory, most profound, is the warm breath that suddenly appears when the boundless, deep sea, gradually sinks, wrapping it up and taking it away. Although after breaking through the deep sea, it dispersed with the owner of that breath. And it miraculously came to life again. Born in the spirit world. But in the life after it, in addition to reminiscing about the warmth, there is only constant wandering and searching in the spirit world, and the present world. It didn't dare to go too far. Because the deep sea area of the spirit world is lonely and boundless, but it can always make it in a trance, like returning to the time of birth again. Surrounded by that warmth again. Is that so? Baizi, who returned to reality, slowly opened his eyes, and he finally understood the pure emotion of Doran Baruto. The surface creatures of the spirit world follow the purest form of the law of the weak. Just like the crystal lantern needs to draw souls to become strong. In the spiritual world, if you want to lose yourself without being washed away by the dead energy that fills this place, you need to constantly strengthen yourself and absorb the soul power of other spiritual bodies. Imaginary body, Doran Baruto is completely immune to death energy. But the primitive and pure fighting between spirit bodies, the scene of the strong engulfing the weak, has already made it accustomed to it. Therefore, when it was discovered that Xiaohuang with Baizi's breath appeared in the inverted world, the reason why Doran Baruto appeared to take her away from the inverted world was to rescue Xiaohuang. In its simple consciousness, the mighty Giratina must be a predator that engulfed countless living beings. And Xiaohuang, CFED, this incomparably weak, but also with the same warm breath, was regarded as the same kind. This is also the reason why Baizi recklessly appeared and became angry after Baizi appeared. I didn't expect this to happen. Baizi was dumbfounded for a while. But this heavy feeling still made his chest a little blocked, but the corners of his mouth also rose unconsciously. However, messiahs turned out to be naturally generated, companion spirits. This point is a little different from the normal dragon Baruto. Baizi stretched out his hand, and curiously touched the top of the heads of these two vivid, companion spirits. Feeling the other party's intimate response, the smile on his face became more obvious. And at this time, Blue Tilda. After facing the other party and slowly opening it, the bright yellow pupils were still somewhat ignorant and dazed. Next second, the warm breath that washes the soul envelops the other party. A warm smile appeared on his face. First time, Doran Baruto, and welcome back. Baizi covered the palm of his hand on the angular and hard head armor of Doran Baruto. The next thing, including Doran Baruto's reign, naturally came naturally. And after Baizi told Kangshong and the others about Duolong Baruto's experience, even if he was sitting proudly, he recognized this new partner in his heart. The emotional Hoopa directly lost the grudge before, and looked deeply moved with tears in her eyes. Everything is in harmony. Xiao Huang finally confirmed that he was successfully rescued, without any problems. The only thing that gave him some headaches. Head down. Turbulent, shadow under his feet, Baizi couldn't help stroking his forehead. As a ghost type, Doran Baruto also doesn't like staying in the Pokeball, but fell in love with him Shadow. But Baizi's shadow already has a tenant. And Marciado, who has always been very hopeless, showed a very strong expression of the possession of the shadow. No, as soon as Doran Baruto entered, it was no different from the frying pan. Even Baizi's persuasion didn't have the slightest effect. And it's not just Machado. The same goes for Doran Baruto. Obviously he can already understand Baizi's words, but when Baizi persuaded it to be okay, he suddenly showed a blank expression of, "What are you talking about?" Completely ignoring Machado's madness and expulsion, with the help of the characteristics of the imaginary body, the old god was back in the nest again. Recalling its previous performance of playing with Hoopa, Baizi couldn't help but twitch at the corner of his mouth. Have to tilde. After Shinado and Zoroark, Kangshong and Lai Kong sat, the third pair of enemies under his command was born.